completely launched. We've started the show, and it is Planet Green Trees. We're about to embark 2 hours of medical marijuana and marijuana reform in Michigan.
Attention, ladies and gentlemen, the Planet Green Trees show is underway with your host, attorney Michael Komorn.
Alrighty.
We have launched.
Yes, exactly.
Alrighty, we've launched. Welcome, everybody. Planet Green Trees has begun. Episode number 494. I'm your host, Michael Komorn of Komorn Law PLC. Thank you for joining us. Today's date is December 17th, 2020.
Yeah.
The name of the show is Under the Influence. This will be revealed later on. And we have a very exciting show for you. Glad that you're tuning in, and you do not want to miss 1 minute. Special guest tonight, Andrew DeAngelo of Harborside.
Yes.
Always a good one.
Yeah.
And much more. He'll be calling in.
Lots of fun.
He'll be calling
in about 8:30.
8:30?
And he's got,
8:30-ish.
actually, I'm sure he's going to share some amazing news about some stuff, but...
Okay, good. He's got so much information.
Yeah, and we can maybe have him in on the second conversation.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe we can hear a little bit about
He contributes to all conversations.
Yeah, and he has some stuff to say, I'm sure, about the MORE Act, you know?
That'll be good.
Got a lot of stuff to talk about. We're excited. He was on a few episodes back and raised a lot of
Very
interesting
exciting.
things.
Yeah.
We already had this story on the MORE Act, which is Howard Woolridge last
Yes.
week.
Yeah, it was great.
Police officers supporting the legalization of heroin and cocaine. Check it out. Episode number 493. All right, the topics tonight, no particular order. I think we're probably going to combine a rant and the appellate docket sheet number and a release of the Court of Appeals opinion in People versus Michael Dean DUPRE. And we'll explain why that's an important thing to talk about. We also have on the agenda here, Michigan Senate considers forming a joint committee that could suspend the COVID restrictions.
Ooh, interesting.
Which was a hot topic. Senate
I wonder if they have
passes
that
marijuana
power.
research bill 1 week after the House approved similar legislation.
Oh.
Second dispensary now selling recreational marijuana in Grand Rapids.
Oh, that's
And
good.
SKYMINT, Michigan's leading cannabis retailer, brings largest selection of...
Here we go.
All right, so I guess we'll have a SKYMINT.
No need to even mention their fucking stupid ass name.
Jamie, tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, we want to hear
All
more.
right, I was not in charge of the... I'm very interested in DeAngelo and, of course, this Michael DUPRE case, which we're going to talk about.
At length.
You guys can handle your
I'm interested in
SKYMINT,
that.
your SKYMINT topics. And internet wrestle with
Isn't that
Jamie.
Greed Peak?
All right, we're going around the horn here. Everyone be ready because it's going to be...
Yeah.
We want to make sure we can turn the double play when it's time. So be ready. But last week I asked everyone to identify a place in history that they may want to go back to, and everyone gave terrible answers. I was
Horrible.
that
It was
Yeah.
really
fucking
bad.
follow the rules.
prepared
It's
for
really
that.
bad.
People were like, yeah, they're like last
Like,
week
Jesus,
and stuff.
Petey.
Yeah,
Fine.
I
We're-
changed my answer.
No,
at
too
the
late.
end of the
Fine,
show
fine, fine.
this week.
Yeah,
I tell you what.
I had a chance to think about
I got a
it.
new question this week,
All right.
but you can also
We'll try not
give a
to-
new
we'll
answer
try not
from
to
last
screw
week.
it up
Okay.
again.
This one is less confusable, but assume that you are a living in a world where reincarnation adds to an animal as a thing. What animal do you want to come back as?
Ooh.
All right, that's the
Okay.
question as you introduce yourself so the viewers can understand
Interesting
Several.
question.
what kind of
I have
person you really
several.
are.
Yeah.
Can you come to
From
me?
the bunker, which have no
All right.
voice, they would return as an animal that has no voice and cannot talk. Someone would talk for them. And they would be able to defend themselves either when blamed for all things internet. So thank you for being here, gentlemen, Tommy and Justin. Have Justin scream through the wall who he would be.
Where's
Hey!
where's the applause?
All right, never mind. Okay. All right, Jim, I tried to give a little bit of delay there so you could think out your answer carefully because
Good.
people want to know.
I know they do. I know.
Please welcome Jim Powers with these two compelling answers right now.
Oh, thank you, Michael. There's two or one?
There's two.
Well, you can... I gave
We
you
can
opportunity
pick
if you want to amend your answer from last week. You don't have to. I think you
Oh,
said you want to go back
I
up.
thought my lame answer from last week should just stand.
Very good.
So-
You don't have to then.
But I'd come back as a prairie dog.
Oh,
Everybody loves a prairie dog, right?
cute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they look like they're always having so much fun.
They do. They
So,
look really cute and
yeah.
friendly.
Yeah.
And
so-
they're very fast,
yes,
agile.
quite
Very
fast.
agile.
Interesting answer. I'm anticipating a cat and dog division here amongst our crew.
No,
but
I didn't want to let you down.
it's fine. Whatever. The Thank you for being here, Jim. Next, we have Amanda Joslin of the Elevation Station, YouTuber and interviewer of all people trying to sell retail cannabis and getting down and figuring it all out there. Please welcome Amanda Joslin.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. I'm glad to be here. I was Zoom Illumin last week, and it just isn't the same.
No.
It's not the same at all.
You don't have access to the spread.
Yeah, I'm really glad to be here too, and I enjoy the spread as always. If I were reincarnated as an animal, Michael, I think that I would probably want to come back as either a panda or koala. And I say that for two reasons. They're cute, okay? They're cuddly, but they are also very ferocious when provoked.
I hear that.
You know what I mean?
I hear they'll surprise you.
Now, I'm leaning more on the side of the koala because what they like to do mostly is just kind of hang out and eat the eucalyptus, and they get totally medicated on the eucalyptus, and it's all good. But, you know, I'm kind of on the fence.
Right.
The pandas eat only bamboo, I think, right? Which is weird and unusual and a bizarre diet.
Yeah, I think I'll lean toward the koala. I'll go koala. I've seen some pretty intense koalas,
Going
too.
full koala.
Yeah.
That's good.
Going for it.
I like it.
Yeah.
That's good.
Cute ears, too.
That's a good answer. I like it. And you know what? Most importantly, you came with some defense of it. That's what I'm looking for. Like, why? You know, that's like, if you want to know why. Excellent. Thank you. And check out all of Amanda's interviews and Elevation Station, also hosted on Planet Green Trees.
Yeah, and if I can mention one other thing, to
Please.
check out the website there, because we are offering a lot of awesome and super cool services coming up in the January going forward. So I encourage everybody to follow those YouTube channels.
Yeah, there's a new location. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we got a little bit of some fresh digs and some not only fresh digs but also new services, like I say. So I'm not gonna give you too much info because I want you to go to the site and do your own exploration and take your own journey.
And
Okay.
that's the elevationstation.com.
It's actually you can get their wellness doctors online.
Okay. Wellness Doctors Online. Alrighty. Moving around the room here. Many of you know him as the Rover at Komorn Law. That's the play any position at any time, ready to be called in
Wherever I'm needed.
wherever needed. He's also well known for his plethora of work in the mid-'70s and library of
Fly like an eagle.
jams. My dear friend Steve Miller, retired police officer, and all purposes. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you. And I'm going to pick two animals.
Oh, okay, go.
So the first one,
Oh,
as
boy.
I sit here every night with my son and I watch TV shows, and I see how great my dog has it.
Yeah.
Like a house dog for a really good family. It doesn't even matter which the breed. I just have to get a good family that just loves me.
Can I interrupt? I thought Amanda was going to say she wanted to come back as her dog. I did think that was a possibility.
Yes.
Just like the whole glamour,
No.
glamour dog. It's like a new thing. Like
So, you know, the
Your
live an
TikTok
easy
account.
life, I want to be a house
I have
dog
two
to a
purses
good
for you.
family.
your dog, for example. You'd like to come back as your dog.
As my dog.
There you
yes.
go.
She is very well loved.
Yeah,
house.
she's a sweet.
You know what?
Yeah.
I think your dog may be a reincarnation of another person just like you from another
It
time.
could be.
Okay, I'm just saying. Go ahead.
And then, but then my real desire would be to be a bald eagle.
Oh,
Whoa,
fly like an eagle. There you go.
patriotic.
The ultimate
Patriotic.
bird predator. We've had a couple flying around our sub all summer long, and these things are amazing. When you see them, and I've tried to send you guys some pictures of them as I've tried snapping these. It's hard to get a picture of them because they're up so high in the trees, and you can, and then when they come down, they just spread their wings out. Their wingspan is giant, and they got the beautiful white heads, and no wonder when we first came here, that's what we named the country bird.
It's a very
No, from the turkey. I think we started off as the turkey.
Oh
But,
my
It's a-
goodness!
it's a
Are
very-
you kidding me?
No, that's a true
It's a
story.
very,
Thank
very.
goodness
That's
it was
true.
changed.
Yes.
It's a very patriotic selection, right? Because it's the. And my question would be, they are sometimes taken advantage of in pandered in political events. You think it'd be the type of bald eagle that could be tamed to sit next to
good
a
question.
at a debate or a rally for a politician?
No, I'm going to be out flying.
You're wild. You're wild
I
and free.
am flying, and I'm
Screw
sitting
that
high up in
domestic
trees,
shit.
watching everything, and looking for prey and being an eagle.
right.
They aren't keeping me They aren't going to have me at a political
Nobody's
rally.
gonna snip his
I don't
I
think
wings.
so.
guarantee it.
Screw that.
Now, there's no correlation here with your mid-'70s success hit Fly Like an Eagle. That has nothing to
No,
do.
that happens to be just a coincidence, actually.
It was just
I don't know about that, Steve. I don't know if you call that a coincidence.
I think it was meant to
It's
be.
something else.
to the sea.
All right, now to the Zoom people up here. Let's see. Let's start with my dear friend up there in the corner. He's looking very Rasta Rabbi. And most importantly, Ellen was this past week in an emergency session convened in the dark of night. Very little notice given. A quorum, minion in some fields, joined and enough there to agree to legislatively appoint Alan Peisner to the position of council member of the newly named Cannabis Law Section. And he gave a very nice entry speech. That's a big event this week.
Very
That's
good.
exactly what people did on Zoom. They were like,
Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a great honor to serve on the Cannabis Law Council.
Ugh.
Michael, you've served on the Cannabis Law Council for 4 years, and you've done a great job, and you've been very modest about it. Never asked for any awards or acknowledgement of it. So you giving me the acknowledgement for just getting on the council is incredible, considering the service you put in for 4 years to the council, as well as incredible service to all the marijuana patients in the state of Michigan, whether they have a problem with law enforcement or with the MRA. Your assistance has just been invaluable. And so on behalf of all the people here, we have to thank you. Now, for the animal question, I think I'm going to go with two animals. One would be a house dog like Steve, but of course not Steve or like Steve. The other one would be a dolphin.
Oh,
That's a good choice.
You know, okay. First, I would like to hear why.
Oh no,
Because
no. This
let's
is a
not get freaky
this is
now.
a PG-13 show.
Yeah.
okay?
Well, yeah, the dolphin or the dog is cool. I mean, the dog can sit on your lap while you're smoking a joint and catch a contact buzz and everything like that.
Oh my.
I just think being a dolphin's cool. I like to swim and I like to move in the water. And
You want to know
You
if you
hear
get high
about
off the
some of these-
puffer fish,
Yeah.
don't you, you
Well,
sick bastard?
That's one thing, the puffer fish, but there's some dolphins that aren't quite so friendly. They're a little aggressive, if you will.
yeah, I
You
know.
They're
They
a
are
little
wild
forceful.
animals.
I could
You
tell
know.
you some stories about divers getting
Well,
assaulted
Alice
by.
didn't say he wanted to be an aggressive dolphin.
I could see him being a friendly dolphin that would help somebody find shore again if they were lost or something, or if they dropped their camera in the water. You could, you would be the one to dive in and bring it back to them. That type of thing. You'd be that type of dolphin. I could
Alan,
see that.
would you be one of those dolphins that saved people that were in boat accidents? Are you that kind of dolphin, do you think?
Oh,
that's a good one.
yeah.
That's a good
Yeah,
one.
probably.
You do that, huh?
Do you think
Yeah.
you'd do weird stuff to divers? Kind of dolphin?
I think it depends on the diver.
It'd be like that
What the
fish
fuck is
that
going on?
Someone wanted to go there.
My God.
I totally did.
Somebody. I just felt it.
Oh.
Good answers, though. Good answers.
Yeah, great.
All right.
Really
So
Woo!
let's go to superstar attorney Alyssa McCormick, who is sitting with a human that's been reincarnated as a dog. Tell us about that over there, Allie.
Yeah, it's good to hear. But no, Steve took my answer, two of my answers that I actually had. The first was, well, yes, a dog, but specifically probably Layla, because she's very spoiled, as you can see.
She's a cutie,
And
too.
yeah, my second was an eagle, but I guess my backup would be either a southern penguin, like the smaller ones, or
Aw,
a,
cute.
Or what?
or a sea turtle.
Ah,
Oh,
sea turtles are cool.
cute.
Why? We gotta know why. Penguin or
Why?
turtle? Yeah, you have to
Well,
decide.
I really like small penguins. They're my second favorite animal behind flamingos. And also just, I don't know, sea turtles, they get big and they seem really chill and cool and fun. I don't know.
They may live for a long time too,
They
don't
do,
they?
and they totally get to see a lot of stuff because they swim all over the freaking ocean.
Yeah,
They're all
that's
over.
No
no,
boundaries.
Yeah.
that too, but maybe the movie Finding Nemo had something to do
Oh,
with that.
yeah.
I really like that movie, but
That's cute.
So you want
Well,
to condition the reincarnation that's got to be cartoonish, right? It's got to have the whole. That's where you kind of come back into. I'm kidding.
Of course, because it always ends up in like a a happy ending and nothing bad happens. So of course, I want a Disney kind of setting in this.
Yeah,
Of course.
It's good.
I'm curious
right.
to hear your answer.
Yeah,
Would we-
yeah, Michael.
I go at the end. Come on.
All right.
He'll
all
go
right.
at the end.
Let's go down to the center of the universe here. We got
Fly like an eagle.
no right on the what do you
already
call
flew
it?
like
Well,
an
no, what do you
eagle.
call it? What's the thing in the middle of the
The bullseye.
no, the equator.
The equator.
Equator man.
Yes.
How
There
the
he
hell
is.
was I going to get that?
Jeff Frazier. Jeff Frazier from some beach somewhere with surrounded by iguanas.
Where
Equator
are
man.
you right now, Jeff?
Where's the
Are you
Equator
in some
man?
undisclosed location?
Equator man.
I am
There he
I am
is.
in the dark of night. In the dark of night at Komorn Law Galapagos office that doesn't have lights. It's right by the beach. And without a doubt, I want to be reincarnated as a Galapagos marine iguana because no organism has ever figured out a better way to get on in life. They wake up, sit on the rocks in the sun, swim at low tide, and eat hallucinogenic algae, sit back on the rocks in the sun, spit, copulate, repeat. Anyway, hello, everybody.
Hello. They've evolved even because they take in salt water from the and they like sneeze it out.
I didn't even know that they got high.
I didn't know about that either. That makes him better. Yes.
That's where I was stuck.
Makes
you know,
sense.
I got stuck right there when you were talking, and I was like, oh, I didn't realize that. But yeah, that's a good answer. That's a good answer.
I bet there's some effect on the if people started gathering the salt that they blow out. There's probably some hallucinogenic chemicals in there. Jeff. There could be somebody start.
I couldn't comment on that, afraid.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. So things are good in Galapagos. So
Yeah, there was. I've come to think of it. There was a guy that fed coffee to iguanas, and it would pass through them, and somehow he then created this specific brand of coffee.
Ah,
But I don't
I've
think
heard about
I
that.
don't think he was successful in the long run.
Interesting. Jeff, of course, for those that don't know, was practicing law at Komorn Law down in the Galapagos. He also was starring in a movie and was cast as a character who was on a hammock, drunk with a guitar.
Well,
It was. I understand the
Did you
performance
have
was
to act?
compelling.
They just had to catch him on a film.
it looks like we've got
It-
our guest in the waiting room.
It is a very difficult role to play, but someone had to step up.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to our friend Jay. I understand our guest is in the waiting room, which we want to get to in a second here. But of course, we don't want to. Jeff, hang around. We got to talk about this crazy case too, because when we get to it. But we have with us, and we're happy to have him. So, it looks like he's out doing his list like he normally does, and just stop for a second to say hello. Our dear friend and the person responsible for everything, Jamie Lowell.
Hello. I'm in Lansing at a hotel, so I'm not inside the hotel room smoking pot.
You totally seem pissed off. You're pissed off, and we want to know why.
Yeah, what's
We
going on?
want to know. Okay?
Yeah. Why so edgy,
You're in
Jamie?
a safe space here. It's
Just
just
gotta
us
chip up.
and 1,000
Just
other
bit-
viewers.
I don't appreciate all the good things going on in my life, and I'm just bitter.
Okay, well,
For no good-
You know what, Jamie? Listen, listen. Ironically, and we'll get to this later on. Jamie is evidencing under the influence and driving right now.
That's right.
The idea of being,
That's right. We're going to talk about that
I know
in
we
a
are.
minute.
But you have the consumption of marijuana,
Yeah.
and you have the ultimate other element, which is in this case, which
Which is
includes
actually driving. Like
some effect. Now he's annoyed by all the shit that's going on in his life,
Yeah.
and he's consuming. Those two things
That
get
could
you
be
a
a
OWI
sticky
marijuana.
situation.
Yes, that's the great. All right, so
Jamie Lowell.
that was going to be the rant. We'll come back to that. Of course, Jamie, would you name your fucking animals or what? Come on, quit playing around.
I think I'd stick with Homo sapien and also select a resourceful, caring family.
What? You're gonna be a human? Gonna stay a human?
Reincarnation doesn't contemplate that.
You don't get to be that.
It's an animal.
You can't. You can't.
Yeah.
You have to
Well, if I
choose something
had to
different.
exclude humanity, I'd have to go to sloth.
Okay. All right.
Why?
I like it. 'Cause they're
Not a lot of
cute.
expectations. Pretty mellow.
Slow moving. So much so that
Hang
like
around.
mold and algae grow on them. You know, do you hear about that?
Makes sense.
Seriously.
Makes sense.
So, yeah.
Ah,
High
okay.
tolerance.
Yeah.
You know, there's a sloth bear. You're not talking about a sloth. You mean like
Yeah.
a real sloth,
They
right?
have them at the Toledo Zoo.
Three-toed.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Three-toed.
Sloth bears.
Mhm.
Yep. It's when you go to the when you cross over the bridge at the Toledo Zoo. One of the first exhibits to your left, over by the penguins.
I do love
Across from the penguins are the sloth.
I mean, who
bears.
doesn't?
Yeah.
You know?
Hey, another reference.
Sloth
to-
bears related to the pandas, I believe.
Who's in our queue? Is that David Rudoy or
Rudoy. and
Okay.
I thought.
Oh, it's Rudoy.
Okay, good. David Rudoy is joining us. Jamie, I'm not done with you. I want you to please.
And in reference to Jamie's sloth pick,
Yes.
Sid the Sloth is
Oh,
a great character
love
in the
Sid.
movie Ice Age.
That is
Sid.
true.
Yeah, that's true.
Everybody loves Sid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody loves Sid.
Good pick, Jamie.
Yeah,
I also like the
could
squirrel.
Totally see you as
I like the
Sid
squirrel.
too. You know what? You might get a lot of Sid memes coming your way pretty quick here. So
Boom.
All right,
we all know what that's about.
we're
We
gonna-
all know.
And real quick, the store Botanical Company in Lansing opened on Tuesday. 2
Boom.
days in.
Oh, nice.
Congrats. Congrats.
Is that a retail?
Retail. The cultivation started like a month ago or so. There, Franklin Fields, all in the same building. Then the lab for processing is being put together now.
Nice.
Ah.
And it's called Franklin Field. That's just a different name of the company, or like a sub company.
Different company that does cultivation. Yeah.
But are they
does-
associated with botanical?
Yeah. Botanical Company's retail, and then I'm not sure what the name of the processing company is going to be. That's
Okay.
Jamie Lowell Processing.
What's in the store right now?
Restaurants.
What's the store buying from other places right now? Is that what they're forced to do?
yes. Yep.
How's
And we'll continue to do that. Also feed.
Have you had a chance to
Itself.
sample and comment on the quality of the cannabis that is on the shelves there?
Yeah. When that goes. Yeah. And when the stuff comes in from Franklin Fields, for sure we'll do that. And hopefully Amanda will come back out with Dan and.
You kidding me?
Well, I'm saying.
Yeah.
We already have our bags packed. We're just waiting on a date from you. We're
There
just
you go.
waiting on a date. We're there.
Dirty Dan.
Well, Lansing,
I'm
that gives
assuming-
me
I'm
a
assum-
reason to head that way now. Lansing's only half hour from the house.
There you go. Jamie, I'm assuming that we'll have great things to expect from the Franklin Fields, but I was just asking a general question what your take is on the cannabis that's been available on the market from other growers. How would you compare it to the quality of cannabis that you've come to know and maybe use at times that originates from a caregiver garden?
Yeah. The caregivers generally have, particularly the ones who've been doing it for a while, have better cannabis. But there's some really good cannabis on the commercial market, and those are usually people who were caregivers and they figured out how to scale up properly. There's a few that have done that, and that cannabis is really good.
Less available? Are you saying like that's what's
Yeah,
on the shelves right
Less
now?
really good in the commercial market, but there is some really good cannabis on the commercial market.
It's
Boom.
limited and it's not all over the state. Am I right? It's being sold at higher prices than what caregiver prices?
Yeah, no, yeah, and that's true too. Like what's reasonably available at a reasonable cost given the supply chain and all that kind of stuff, and what's really good and high quality. There's not a whole lot of that combination. We have some good friends who've been doing this for a long time with some good relationships, and that's carried into this new world, and that's one of the reasons why we're able to have a decent inventory.
Okay, Jim,
Good.
we have time to go on. We're gonna get our guest in, David Rudoy. Are you still there, David?
Rudoy.
David.
David.
Okay, good.
All right.
David, I don't feel bad about making you wait. Usually, if you're on hold for 10 seconds, you hang up, you got to do something else.
He's driving.
Yeah,
But
but
I know-
David, why are you being a creeper with your light off and then all of a sudden turn it on in your car?
I know you're driving. Do you need to turn that off to drive okay?
That's a little weird. That
can't
would
hear you,
get
Dave.
pulled over.
I'm not turning lights off and on. It might be.
Not you.
No.
Not you, Jamie, but if you're guilty, go ahead and wear
Rudolph.
that shoe.
Rudolph. David Rudoy, we're trying to talk to him, and he's on mute. I
I
don't
didn't
think.
realize other people were riding around in their car getting high. Okay,
What's up?
All right, good. Do you need to turn your light off to not draw attention to yourself driving? I don't want to be responsible for that. Are you okay?
I'm not under the influence, even by the DUPRE definition.
All right, good. So that's what we're going to talk about.
All right.
Alan, are you ready to talk about DUPRE? Alan?
Alan.
Yes.
Okay.
I think he was sleeping.
Allie,
I was
go
looking
ahead.
out of the window.
Yep.
Allie, what would you
He's
say?
under the influence by all definitions.
Okay.
It's a good meme.
So a
for
case
this
came
case.
out today
Good.
called People versus Michael Dean DUPRE. Our brother and our Bruce Block was the attorney of record. And I would imagine, I don't know if there was a consensus on whether this case was going to be appealed or not, but my takeaway on it is that it was not a great ruling. The brief beginning of this is that the defendant here appeals a case that was granted. The appeal was by leave and granted following a conditional plea, which means that the defendant was charged with the offense, ended up pleading guilty, conditioned on that they were going to appeal. Doesn't mean the Court of Appeals has to take it. Some people have been burned by that. But on appeal, the defendant argues that the trial court erred when it determined that the MMA permits a defendant to be convicted of operating while visibly impaired because the plain language of the MMA does not allow for such convictions. For the reasons set forth, they affirm. Now, the language that is being spoken about that's going to come up over and over again is the language in the MMA in Section 7 that says, you're entitled to protections in this act, assuming you're in compliance with the law, and none of the following exist. And in Section 7, we have, amongst other things, you can't operate heavy equipment, can't smoke in public, and you cannot be operate a vehicle under the influence. And this is a key term of art, under the influence, also why we've named the show Under the Influence. And let's be mindful that this opinion, or this challenge here, starts with the idea that you have a medical marijuana patient who is being charged with operating while visibly impaired. This is a crime in Michigan statute under 257-625 that is the lesser included offense of the traditional drunk driving charge, which is OWI, known as operating while intoxicated. All driving offenses start under that particular premise. Operating while intoxicated, OWI. There's a lesser included offense of operating while visibly impaired. We're talking about alcohol. It's clear in the alcohol prohibition statutes that for driving that there's a distinction of these two. There's certain penalties associated with each one of them if convicted. And if you're negotiating a reduction of a charge in a drunk driving case, there's significant differences between the two of them. But at the same time, if you go to trial in a drunk driving case, the jury is, most instances, offered the lesser included offense as one of the choices amongst them that they can choose when they get their case, meaning they can find the defendant guilty of operating while intoxicated, operating while visibly impaired, or they can find him not guilty. And I say that because it's always been in the context of a lesser included of driving while intoxicated, and the argument here is that the MMA, by virtue of the language that if you're a card holder and assuming you're in compliance with all other aspects of the law, can't drive a vehicle under the influence. And the argument Bruce is making is that operating while visibly impaired is precluded by the patient protection of driving not under the influence, or
Yeah, that one isn't the other.
one isn't the other. Now, the ultimate opinion in this case, let me start from there and work backwards, and I want to hear the other lawyers' hype in here, and there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of references to the People versus Kuhn case, which was always perceived as a very favorable case for medical marijuana patients, because at the time of the Kuhn case in 2013, I think it was, there was another law in Michigan which was operating while having any presence of marijuana in your system. So you could have 1 nanogram of THC in your system.
There was, or there is?
Well, it still exists, although arguably repealed by virtue of the MRTMA. But at the time of Kuhn, a person who had marijuana in their system, 1 nanogram of active THC, even though they may not be driving poorly, could be convicted, and even after Kuhn, they could be convicted. However, if you had a medical marijuana patient card, that crime was no longer applicable because you were immune from you're immune for the activity of medical use, and the ingestion of cannabis is protected in the medical use as a patient. However, in Section 7, they say, they don't connect it to, but they clearly say that you can't be under the influence. And ultimately, that's what the statute says, and clearly can't be under the influence. And they did not get into a lot of detail beyond that, but it was a victory for patients because it immunized them from ingesting cannabis and driving. And the premise was that if they arrested a patient, they would have to prove more than just they had in their system. They'd have to prove that they were actually under the influence. Now, what happens here is that this case gets to the Court of Appeals, and they ultimately conclude, in sum, we conclude that the MMA does not supersede the operating while visibly impaired statute.
Which is not true.
Which means here that they have concluded that a patient can be charged with operating while visibly impaired. Under the influence, as used in the MMA section, as I just mentioned, section 7B4, is not limited in meaning to how that phrase is understood.
Not true.
With regards to the OWI statute. So now they're trying to figure out, because as this opinion is kind of interestingly angled, they're
literally saying that a word means something differently in one section of the law than the other. It's
interesting because they throw huge blame on the voter initiative and the writers of it.
It's an excuse.
Like it's 2000.
They used that phrase for a very specific reason. It was this reason.
And what they say is that had it been written by the legislature, they wouldn't have used the loosely framed term under the influence because it has no real statutory significance as a term of art in Michigan.
Whatever.
Such as the terms intoxicated and impaired. Yeah. Those two are clearly defined. So they had to go into great detail to pull this stuff off, but it is.
Does it make a difference? Then in the MRTMA, it just says, like, it's under that section where it just says this law does not, and then just explains that it does not allow people to drive under the influence.
The problem is, Jamie, that this is a case about MMA, but they go into the recreational law to justify their conclusion. At one point, they say, in the recreational law, there's the comparison to alcohol. This is actually...
Yeah.
I didn't even get to the bottom part of the opinion.
Where does that nexus?
Here you go.
How did we jump frickin' axe?
They have taken a non-issue and blown it up.
Here you go. Listen to this, okay?
Unreal.
So, therefore, although the Kuhn court held that the plain text of the MMA reflects the elector's intent to allow for registered patients to internally possess marijuana, it did not state, as the defendant Bruce Block argues for his client, that the electors intended that a registered patient who intentionally possesses marijuana be immune from prosecution of OWVI. See Kuhn. And they don't, page 6 and 7. To the contrary, our Supreme Court has appeared in light of marijuana legalization to treat marijuana as if the electors intended that marijuana be treated similar to alcohol. This is a medical case, by the way. See it at 8. A person can be convicted for OWVI for alcohol use. See 257, 625.3. Similarly, the zero tolerance provision, which the Kuhn court held does not apply for medical marijuana use of marijuana. Kuhn this is where it gets wild. Michigan 7 does not apply to alcohol. See, that's Section 8. Hence, a previously alluded to defendant reading the MMA would require this court to conclude that the elector's intent was to give registered patients internally possessing marijuana greater protections than average citizens internally possessing alcohol. They have now, listen to this. Hence,
How the hell?
hence,
What the fuck?
as previously alluded to, defendant's reading of the MMA would require this court, the Court of Appeals, to conclude that the elector's intent was to give registered patients intentionally possessing marijuana greater protections than average citizens internally possessing alcohol. The language of the MMA, the MMA is void, and defendants presents no evidence that would lead us to conclude this was the elector's intent. Rather, our reading of Section 7 of the MMA leads us to conclude that the limitations on immunity appear to be in situations in which public safety or public health intersect with registered patients' use. For example, okay, so listen, so the what they ultimately conclude, so I'm saying this is how, so they had to go into the recreational law, call it akin to alcohol, as if there's a medical alcohol that they could compare in the driving code. They can't. And they pulled it back in and said, in that case, it would be unfair to the regular drinker if some alcohol and in effect didn't matter. And that's what the impaired driving is for. That's what they're saying.
It'd be better if they would compare it to other medications.
Impaired driving could be something less than 0.08 in bad driving. You get 0.05 in bad driving. That's what they're saying.
But they should have to at least prove the bad driving and prove that that substance was the direct cause.
I understand, but this analogy here is insane.
Yeah, I can't believe they
Okay.
put alcohol in.
So this is the key point here. This is the terrible thing here. Under the influence as used in the MMA is not limited in meaning to how the phrase is understood with regard to the OWI or the drunk driving statute. Now here you go. A person may be considered under the influence of marijuana. They're struggling to find out what under the influence means. And Jamie, to answer your question, the use of under the influence is what's used in the recreational law. The use of that will come back to haunt us because of this. Because whatever we thought under the influence meant,
well, that's not true.
The Court of Appeal. Well,
no. It's not. It's well. The use of the words isn't the problem. The warping of that being.
I understand. But where this is going to be a thing. I'm just saying, unless the Supreme Court undoes it. But what I'm getting at is that they make this, and I'm just explaining their logic. I'm disagreeing with it, but just to explain what they've done. They made the point that the MMA uses the word under the influence. Nowhere in the drunk driving statute do they use under the influence. They use intoxicated and impaired. Those, they would say, are terms of art. And had the writers of the MMA used intoxicated or impaired as terms of art, we wouldn't even have these fucking problems. But instead, they decided to use the term under the influence, which is not really well defined in Kuhn, other than to say that the presence of it alone is not enough, but there's got to be under the influence without definition. And then they go on to say, as I just said here, that under the influence as used in the MMA is not limited to, in meaning, to how that phrase is understood with regard to the OWI statute. Then they go on to say this: a person may be considered, and they're declaring what the definition is, under the influence of marijuana, if it can be shown that consumption of marijuana had, quote, some effect on the person. Some effect. Now, what we're talking, in such that it weakened or reduced the defendant's ability to drive, such that the defendant drove with less ability than would an ordinary, careful, and prudent driver. There is a lot of problems with this. Number one is the consumption. So if you've consumed cannabis and there's an effect as to your driving, some, and such that it's weakened or reduced the ability to drive, or you're driving with less the ability of an ordinary, careful, or prudent driver. Okay.
How do you measure the ability?
This is what I'm saying to you. The key here is that you've consumed cannabis. The broadness of this not only says the OWVI statute is in play, but so is the OWI statute. That's number one.
For sure.
I think they encompass that. Because the argument here is not that OWI can't be charged. It's at the OWVI. And then they go on to say what world we're in here. And what they're saying is that under the influence means that you've had and consumed cannabis and some effect on your driving is taking place. Now, in the law, common sense would tell you that there'd have to be unequivocal or beyond a reasonable doubt proof of how the marijuana affected, and in this case it would be how the marijuana had some effect. So it's not even like, when you use the word some effect, it seems to give the to remove the necessity of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. It shouldn't be allowed that some effect caused it. It's got to be proof that it was the effect. Now, what are we talking about? That your driving was weakened or reduced. Are these things difficult to prove? No, because if the officers pulled you over for a driving offense, he could say you were weakened in your driving, reduced in your ability to drive like other people. That's why I had to pull you over.
Right.
And why is it? Because they've learned that you've consumed cannabis.
Yeah.
And
why do they
And
know
the
that?
element that needs to be established is that it had some effect on the person.
Yeah.
So, I would argue.
But to note, that's only for you to lose your immunity from arrest, prosecution, and penalty in any manner. That's what they're saying.
Right. Explain.
No, they're defining. Okay, I realize,
not
David.
defining it for the public health code.
I know they're defining it for the MRTMA. And what I'm saying to you is that if someone's charged today recreationally, right, we now have a legal definition of what under the influence means. Because they're going to struggle the same way with the I mean, they're going to use. I'm not saying that this is. I'm foreshadowing bad news. I'm foreshadowing the bad news that this case is the beginning of how they're going to address these driving issues. They're going to cite and claim the same problems with the recreational law as they claim in the MMA, that it was, voter initiative instead of the legislature, and that they use the term under the influence instead of the terms of art of intoxicated and impaired. And what does that mean? It means that they're going to then throw at us from this case. Bruce Block alluded to that. Alan on the. He was fearful that this would have far-reaching consequences because the language. And he's not arguing that it's right. It's the foot in the door of how this can.
It's step one.
Yeah. All right. So listen. That's the explanation. Go ahead. Who wants to go first? Allie's smiling. I don't know if that's really her, but or Rudoy, David Rudoy of Rudoy Law. Let me hear what you got to say. Nice jacket, by the way.
So, first of all, I think that it's like mental fucking gymnastics for them to come up with this opinion and think that they're not going against what specifically is stated.
Watch the road. You're making me nervous. Please, just watch the road. You don't have to look down. Go ahead.
But, I mean, it's mental gymnastics to think that this is not directly contradicting Kuhn.
Of course it is.
First of all. It really is. I mean, Kuhn lays out that they have to, in that case, because there's no other definition, they got to use substantially lessened ability to drive, which is more than operating while visibly impaired, number one. And number two, I think that's the comparable definition from the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act as it was defined. This idea of like having some effect that doesn't even affect driving, because that definition that they used in there doesn't say the word driving.
Nope, just some effect on the person. It could make you a little tired.
Listen, if we're just talking
about a fucking joke, you think that's what the public means?
No, they don't. They don't.
That they think that's what the public would have thought.
Listen, I agree.
It's what they put in the opinion.
It's total mental gymnastics.
Boom.
And the idea that they need to create this new definition and punish with this broad scope of things. I mean, it's alarming on a lot of levels, and the broadness by which this is written. And I'll tell you, this is not different language than is already exists in the statute. They can charge the same type of crime for prescription medications, right, David? There's no.
Yeah.
They use the same thing, but I'm just saying
It's the same as prescription medication.
Oh boy.
You're going out.
We're losing you, David.
David's slurring his words.
Blah. Pull him over.
I just said before the show. I think the real clear thing.
Pull him over.
I'll be better soon, guys. I'll be better soon.
Thank God.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry. You froze up for a second. Go ahead. Tell me.
Really?
What,
All right.
It wasn't good.
So the OWI statute still raised supreme. So what they have to prove is still that you were visibly impaired.
We lost him. He's gone.
A cause to drive.
Michael, one
All
thing
right. Go ahead.
David, your connection's bad. We're going to pass for a second. Get do better
All
his
right,
own.
pass.
You'll come
Okay.
back. Go ahead, Alan.
Michael, one thing I found disturbing in this opinion was when they were talking about the fact that the people wrote the
Yeah.
MMMA. They said that if the legislature had wrote the MMMA, the legislature knows the meaning of being under the influence, and because the MMMA specifically excludes any law that's inconsistent with it, that operating with while impaired would be excluded had the legislature wrote that, because they would have known to include the terms. But because the people wrote it, that's how they get to make these leaps and bounds.
But
and say
Alan,
that it's
I know
That's
that.
also stupid.
I know that, but Alan, what the distinction is this: that in the existing statutes in Michigan that cover the drunk driving and driving under the influence of drugs, 257, 625, they do not use the term under the influence. That term is not a term of art that is regular. I mean, it exists, but they don't. They choose not to use it. They use
That's police.
intoxicated and they use impaired. And then there's a definition of what intoxicated is, and there's a definition of what impaired is. And they're critical of the people writing this law and being ignorant to the under the influence and complain about the the people writing it, and that's why they come out with this new definition of what under the influence means, and forever after have defined it for use in the MMA for the MMA section 7 for B4, and it's foreshadowing what's most likely to be the interpretation for the recreational. All right, that's a good time to stop. I see we've got our guest on here. He could probably chime in on this. Are we going to break first? Okay. All right, let's catch a breath. That was very. David, get to a good area. Alan, you staying with me here? You want to comment?
I'm here.
All right. All right, we're going to take a quick.
Thank God.
We're taking a quick break. We got our guest in the queue. We're excited about this.
You're listening to Planet Green.
We'll be right back.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today, michiganmedicalmarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today, michiganmedicalmarijuana.org.
I am Earl from G3 Cannabis Therapy Network, and you are watching Planet Green Trees, the original and #1 podcast in Michigan for all things cannabis and legal news.
Hey folks, this is Amanda Joslin with the Amanda Report, sponsored by Komorn Law, aired on Planet Green Trees TV. We're here in East Tawas, and man is it beautiful weather, but a little windy, and we're about to do a review on the Botanical Company. Danielle, and we're at the Botanical Company in East Tawas. Tell us a little bit about your location here.
So we are in Northeast Michigan in the beautiful town of East Tawas. We opened in October of 2019 with our medical license, and then February of 2020 we got our recreational license. We have been warmly welcomed by this community, so we're so excited to be here, and obviously you can always find us on Weed Maps and Leafly with any location information.
Very nice, okay. All right, so let's hear about some of the products that you carry here at the Botanical Company.
Definitely flower is a fan favorite here, so we want to make sure that our flower selection is very strong. And then obviously we're always listening to our guests and making sure that any new products coming online, we're getting them in as soon as possible and they're available for sure.
Tell me about another thing that makes Botanical Company a little unique.
I would say it's our aggressive loyalty program. Tawas is a fantastic tourist town through the summer months, but we know once those tourists leave, we have to make sure that we're doing right by our local demographic. So we wanted to make sure that our loyalty program was aggressive for them, so they were coming back and spending their hard-earned bucks and getting the best bang for their buck.
Very nice. Okay, so tell us about how somebody would get started here. I understand you have both adult use and medical use. So what would somebody that's looking to sign up, what would they need to have?
On the medical side, you just need your valid MMJ card and a valid driver's license or state ID. And then on the recreational side, you just need a valid ID. And then really we want to make it very friendly and make it a place where either if you're new to the cannabis lifestyle or very well versed and know exactly what you want, we just want to make sure it's a friendly atmosphere to come on in and spend as much time with our bud tenders as you'd like to.
So other locations, what can we expect from the Botanical Company, Danielle?
We're so excited. We have our vertically integrated facility being built as we speak in Lansing. Such a strong cannabis culture there. That will be our cultivation, processing, and provisioning. That really is our flagship location.
Very exciting.
So November 1st, we hope to have provisioning open there. So we're just over the moon about that.
Yeah.
And then also up in the wonderful town of Kalkaska. Such a great cannabis vibe in that town. We love it. We're going to be opening provisioning and then also social use lounge, which is just, we're so excited to be able to come and get your products. They're right next door to each other. You can come and shop and go next door and just check out some music or hang out, and we're over the moon about it.
I can't wait.
Yeah, us too. Us
Yeah,
too.
so I guess we'll have to be making another trip up north to take a look at not only the provisioning center, but also the lounge. And I understand there's going to be some awesome Kalkaska Kush.
Oh, Kalkushka.
Kalkushka.
For our friends at Real Leaf Solutions.
Very nice.
And it is something that you can currently find at Tawas store, and we will be obviously providing that at all of our locations, and it is phenomenal. Try it if you can find some.
So keep your eyes open, folks, and we'll be reporting more with their Lansing location and their Kalkaska location. This is Amanda with the Amanda Report, sponsored by Komorn Lawn, Air to Planet Green Trees. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
An important and historical farm crop in American agriculture is returned after having been classified as a controlled substance and illegal. On December 20th, 2018, the President signed the Farm Bill, also known as the Agriculture Improvement Act of 2018, into law. The signing of the act was great news for the hemp industry, which amended the definition of marijuana in the Federal Controlled Substances Act. Hemp is now defined as the plant, Cannabis sativa L, and any part of the plant, growing or not, with less than 0.3% THC concentration on a dry basis. The plant itself is no longer a controlled substance. Hemp is one of the most versatile plants on earth. From clothing, fiber, paper, building materials, hempcrete, biofuels, CBD, and medical uses, it has been a part of America's industry for over 200 years. Even the United States Constitution was drafted on hemp paper. The time is now. If you're thinking of getting in the farming or processing of hemp, contact our global experts, legal, and consultation teams to make sure that you're on the right road when you venture into the new hemp industrial revolution. Michigan Hemp Industries has been a leader and advocate for the return of the hemp industry, so come be a part of the new revolution in agriculture in Michigan.
Komorn Law. Michael Komorn is one of the top attorneys in Michigan that has experience and dedication in criminal defense law. Komorn Law can take your case from arrest all the way from trial, appeals, and even to the Supreme Court. The team at Komorn Law has the compassion and the experience you can look to for help in time of need. Komorn Law has over 25 years experience in criminal defense. We have accomplished numerous legislative changes through community involvement and lobbying. Our award-winning law firm has a reputation like no other for keeping overreaching government accountable and in check. We have built Komorn Law for people who need lawyers to stand up to the system, fight back and win. Once we become your lawyer, you become a part of our family. Don't settle for less, just ask our clients. Komorn Law, the best damn criminal defense lawyers, period.
Hi, this is retired Sergeant Steve Miller, and you are watching Planet Green Trees.
Here's Michael Komorn with more Planet Green Trees.
All righty, we are back. Thanks for staying with us.
We'll do it live.
We'll do it live. We're doing it
Do it
live.
live. I can tolerate it, and we'll do it live.
Fuck it.
And thing sucks.
That's what I sounded like at my.
Poor Michael, look
That's
at
the way
his
I was
face.
at.
He has, this is the community entertainment
That's right.
he's forced
That's right.
to deal with.
That's right. No, it's good. Come on. That happens 20 times throughout my day.
That was me at my desk today when the fax machine wasn't working.
All right, we're back. Listen, episode number 494, calling it Under the Influence. We're now joined by our very special guest. He's previously been on our show. His name is Andrew DeAngelo. He's a visionary leader. I have a CV here.
You don't need to do all that. Let's just get into it.
Let's get into
Come
it.
on.
But the things are, obviously, people who don't know, you were involved with the Harborside, I don't know, Oakland, and, of course, the Last Prisoner Project, the most recent of things. But in the sake of some consistency here, I've started these questions. One, if you're going to go back in history at any particular time, what would it be? It's the first question.
Question
I
one.
like it. I like it.
I'd probably go back to the jazz age, man, and have some fun. And then, you know, those last 10 or 15 years before weed was made illegal, and alcohol was illegal, I think that would be a pretty fun time.
That was the era I picked in the original.
Yeah, Steve picked out.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
Other people were picking like last week and like 30 days, 30 years or this is weird, but that's good.
I said like, oh, maybe 10 years ago when I was.
That was not, but that wasn't the assignment. You were much more. You understood the assignment. All right. Second question is if there was a reincarnation and you got to choose what animal you would come back as, what animal would that be?
Would have tore things up.
Yeah.
What animal would I come back as? Most likely a pachyderm.
No.
Yeah, an elephant.
Okay, elephant. There you go.
Elephant is my power animal.
That's
I
good.
guess you could say.
Elephant?
That's so to follow. Why? That's the question. Why? People want to know.
You know, the god Ganesha has been a presence in my life. I was born in India. I was a Peace Corps baby. So elephants were a big part of my childhood, and there were a lot of elephants in India where we were, and some of my earliest memories are elephants, and it's just always been one of those creatures that has been part of the artwork in my life and symbolism of my life, and prayers and blessings that I send out to the universe.
Very cool.
Excellent.
Like
That's awesome.
Yeah.
They're beautiful animals.
They are. Very
All right.
smart, too.
So we were talking on the break, and I want to save it till we came here. We had this terrible case ruling today that, it's like the cop logic kind of stuff where, no offense to cops, but it's got, twisted words that kind of come up with a way to kind of get you into court, get you to plea, get you into the system. The machine is big and bad, and it wins 98% of the time, and who's got the time to fight it? But, and I was even commenting in the back that, before we came back on, that Michigan resisted a per se number, unlike we have for alcohol, but the broadness of this language that allows an arrest seems to be, better for the police to do that than if we had like a strict number of, I don't know, I wouldn't even 20 to 50 or whatever it might be, because the likelihood of the finding that in the blood is so limited compared to the broad language that could result in an arrest. How's California dealt with this, Andrew? And is it really still an issue that you can report on, that there's actually driving and marijuana issues?
Oh yeah, the law enforcement people here are trying to do the same. No one can agree, thankfully. And it's really hard to get any kind of, even for law enforcement, to get cannabis legislation passed in Sacramento, even with one-party rule. It's really hard to do here. Go figure. But yeah, we're in that same battle. What they do here is they give grant money out for companies to invent machines that you can measure this, and then I don't know, they're going to decide on one of the machines and some threshold at some point, and then it'll probably law enforcement will fight for it to be as broad or as strict as possible, and we in the industry will fight for the opposite. And our political friends in the Democratic Party will probably be as unreliable as usual.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens. I mean, sometimes we actually prevail in these battles. Sometimes we get our rear ends handed to us. I'm not sure what's going to happen with that, but it speaks to a larger issue, with these frameworks, and that is this. Society, the elites of society, the people that hold power, it doesn't matter which of the two political parties it is, the people that hold power, they basically are so reluctant to embrace legalization. Their attitude is, okay, we'll let you have legalization, but you have to lock yourself in a closet and take your cannabis, and your relationship to cannabis has to happen in secret, and it can't happen in public and can't be integrated at all, and you have to lock yourself in a closet just like you did with everybody else gay people and black people and all these other groups, you know, just lock yourself in a closet and we'll pretend like weed isn't really legal. And we'll put all the dispensaries in industrial neighborhoods, or we'll ban them altogether. And it's just this attitude, this terrible, terrible attitude that's anti-democratic. It's not following the will of the voters. The voters have spoken. It's overwhelming. We're out. We get more votes than any politician pretty much. Over and over and over again. For 20 years, it's been like this. And it's outrageous travesty of justice, man. It's outrageous.
Now, is this energy, are you talking about the California state legislature in regards to cannabis? This is where all this, you know.
Are you kidding me, man? We have one party rule. We're 3 years into a framework that is a complete disaster for Californians. Our industry is owned by Canadians and New Yorkers, and you know, I mean, there's some Californians in there, but under the medical framework, 100% owned by Californians. So it's been a disaster. They've had multiple opportunities to fix it. I was up there in Sacramento for 2 years. We ran bill after bill after bill to fix it, and they all failed.
Couldn't move on it? No one couldn't get a vote, or it got denied?
No, it just either wouldn't get out of committee. Usually it died in committee. We couldn't even get a vote for it because, you know, they don't want to go on the record, right? They don't want to go on the record, so they kill it in committee. And our problem is we're not well organized. The industry is not funding reform. Everybody's building moats around their businesses. Nobody's cooperating. There's 10 million trade associations. There's 10 million activist groups. They're all lobbying in Sacramento, and the lawmakers are confused, and they're just like, "Fuck it, we'll just vote no." We understand that, so it's a real problem. You know, part of the problem is our problem. We're not well organized. We don't have our political house in order. I don't know how they could expect us to have our political house in order after 100 years of prohibition, but that is the expectation. And you know, while we won the war legalization, we've lost just about every battle since. And I think you're experiencing very similar things in Michigan, and it's really terrible. You know, it's really terrible. You look at places like Oklahoma and Oregon and even Colorado. Colorado still has like 60% bans there, which I just found out recently, which blew me away. I thought they had a lot less than that, but they still have a lot of bans even in Colorado. And you just cannot let the local people have any control whatsoever because they'll screw it up 6 ways to Sunday, and you just have to force them to license. You have to make it the law, and if they don't comply, you have to go in there with the marshals and arrest them, basically. So we'll see if we ever get to that point.
You know, there's a lot of factors that I think go into all the dynamics we just talked about. I mean, obviously California has always been on the cutting edge and leading the way in all of this. And a lot of the political activism was based on incrementalism, right? You wanted to get your foot in the door, you know, then we can come back and fix it later on, right? You're talking instead of creating this framework. And in Michigan, and I think other states also using this local opt-in or opt-out, and I don't know how, I can't think of any other times that I've known about it. It's something that was stated. It happens all the time. So, yeah, we're going to do it. It's legal throughout the state, but, you know, your city wants to vote it in, then, you know, whatever. That was always the selling it. But I think the other side of some of this is that if you have a total state, it's legal everywhere, and you don't have any options, those states that do it that way have, like, fewer licenses. More like, you know, like Ohio, for example, I think it's got, like, you know, limited number of licenses they're giving out. You know, I don't.
Oklahoma.
Well, Oklahoma's completely different. I know.
$2,500, you get a license.
That is the first state to do it like that, and I would agree.
Well, Oregon was pretty good too.
But what happened with Oregon's their supply?
Yeah, the Oregon supply got overlooked.
Okay, all right, so that's the other problem, because without the interstate compacts, and I hope you guys know all about the interstate compact activism that's happening.
Right, we're opposing it, by the way. Just keep going. Just kidding. I mean, we're still in this. Let me explain why. We're still in a shortage. So there's people still making money and growing and blah blah blah. Our market's got to adjust.
Well, they build moats, like I said. They're building moats, right? But the interstate compacts are the key, because without that, we can't have balance and efficiency in the supply chain. And we're never going to be able to absorb the legacy. I call it the legacy market. Some people call it the illicit market. And we'll never be able to absorb it unless we have that. We just won't. So
I would agree. In order to get to where the supply is everywhere, and the price is down, and the quality is good enough where it makes no sense to grow it in your basement anymore, etc. Like alcohol has become, and you even have some craft shops and specialized places. When we get to that, I would agree that it's got to have some kind of interstate interaction stuff. We are so far away from that. I think. You know what I mean? Because it involves a real rigorous infrastructure, consistent everywhere. Now the alcohol programs are all left to this.
You need 3 states to form a compact. 3. Oregon already voted. We need to get 2 more. I ran a bill in Sacramento. Of course, it failed. But a lot of the lawmakers that voted for it really understood it, and I'm hopeful that it might take a couple more tries. We can get it done. Once you have the compact, then the ball will be in the court of the feds. What will the feds do when we start, shipping weed from California to Michigan?
Well,
You should do
that'll
this.
be a
You
good
should do this. Wait. Let's start with this. You do Oregon, Colorado, Arizona, and we will wait and see how it goes.
Yeah.
Sure.
And we
I mean,
can.
It doesn't matter what the 3 are.
Yeah.
It really doesn't. People can wait. That's fine, or they want to watch, or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's a key component to creating accessible and affordable cannabis for all.
Isn't it really you got to have the full 50 states? Ultimately, I mean, for example, the legalization of marijuana.
You have to have where the access and prices are now, which is the illicit market. The illicit market is everywhere, and the price stability is amazing. When I was in college 35 years ago, good bag of weed was $50 for an eighth. Right now, I got a client in Mississippi I'm helping. Good bag of weed in Mississippi in the illicit market, $50 an eighth. Same fucking price, okay, as it was 37 years ago. The access is there, the price is there, the quality's probably better than it was 37 years ago.
You come to Michigan, you won't pay 50 an eighth. I assure you.
What are you paying?
Well, in the legal
In the
market,
illicit market? No, that's what I'm saying. It's cheap.
No, in the legal
It's cheap.
markets, it's 108.
Yeah.
And the eighth is mid-grade.
Yeah. The illicit market here is it's probably about 25, 30 an eighth.
Yeah, but if black market, illicit market.
Well, you're close to Canada. You had the Canadian.
That's the Canadian connection.
Well, put it this way. Put it this way. And this is you're gonna grimace, but it was like 4,000 a pound on the commercial market, 3,000, 3,500, 4,000. More sometimes. Medical's gone down a little bit. Jamie, will you attest to that? Yeah, I mean it's insane. You know what I mean? Like
it's insane in the number.
And then the outdoor grows. Here's something I wanted to ask you about, and I want to get to the Last Prisoner project. We're all passionate about that, but I do have to ask you a couple questions from the commercial market knowledge side and experience that you've had. Because if it does, most of it, the things we're talking about are predictable. We're gonna go through the same growing pains. I mean, it's inevitable. And one of them that I anticipate is a thing is this lab competition stuff that's going on. You have, in order to get into the commercial market, it's got to pass certain lab tests. Now, what I've learned in the last couple of weeks is that different labs use different technology. Some states set up a program where you can pick whatever fucking shit you want. You just got to get ISO certified. Some labs say, no. You have to have this kind of testing for all these, protocols. And I'm talking about mold. Talking about the plates versus this, CPRC, whatever the new technology is, and how it has become a thing where you have these two different two different techniques that are being used. That one lab will say there's so much fucking mold here, and the other lab will say there's no mold here.
So moldy.
Even though the new technology is the way of the future, everybody knows that, but it's too new.
It's too new.
And that they're passing samples that have been denied other places, and it's like it's and that's the first part. Which I want to hear what your thoughts are on that. And then, of course, the inflated THC reporting.
Oh,
the other
boy.
one, right? That's the other.
That's
It's
a
like,
big one.
we'll pay a little extra. You can go take a ride on my yacht if you. And Michigan's going through this spike right now, like 2018. It's kind of like this, and then all of a sudden 2019 and a half. It's like
boom, baby.
And all right, so
to the moon.
Let Andrew explain away and how this is going to be solved.
Look, man, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And when the labs occupy the point in the supply chain that they do, without any kind of equipment or calibration framework that everybody agrees on, like you have for food labs, for instance, or FDA labs, it's going to be a crap show. It's still a problematic in California. California, of course, we test for so many pesticides, so many we test. The air we breathe and the water we drink would fail the cannabis test. All of it would fail. The organic food, all the organic food would fail.
Of course it would.
But we have to pass it. We all have to pass it. So
does it matter, though, if you want one lab that's using the plating, for example, that tests mold versus...
yes, it does matter. And yes, they do inflate scores. And yes, it is corrupt. And yes, it's not well regulated. And yes. All those things are true. The only thing operators can do, and consumers for that matter, is figure out which labs have integrity and which ones are trying to do the right thing and support them.
You're right. You're right, because you know what's happening? If you have these competing labs, and one of them is built on integrity, and concerns of consumer health, whatnot, and they're failing places, and other places are passing them.
They're going to go out of business.
They're going to go out of business.
It's a problem. It's a real problem, and it's a hard problem to solve when the gap between the regulators and those that are being regulated is so extreme, because the regulators don't know how to come up with the lab protocols themselves. And who does? Normally, the University of Michigan would get a grant to figure it out, and they would fucking figure it out. But no, they can't get a grant because of the feds. So usually academia is the place where we figure these things out. That's how or some kind of government agency like the FDA. But we don't have those tools available to us. And our regulators don't have those tools available to them. Does it stop them from over-regulating the lab? No. In terms of what must be tested and what parts per million or billion it is, no, it doesn't stop them from doing that because they're trying to cover their ass because they don't want someone to get sick from a vape pen and sue them. So, as you know, it's a real problem. I don't know if it's a great use of our time to talk about the labs because it's an area of reform that's going to really require a community of people, all of us to work together to get done. But really the trade associations play a role in this too, right? But it is a real problem. And, I can say in California, the sort of the market pressures of people acting with integrity and the policing of those things has created some improvement, but a lot of blood on the tracks along the way.
I mean, to me, it seemed like a consumer protection issue to a certain extent. It just, if any of it's true that things are getting passed because of false negatives testing or, I don't know, looking the other way, knowing that they can get away with it somehow. I mean, and people are paying more, obviously, for the end product, and there's some kind of guarantee. I mean, I'm not suggesting, and Jamie and I talked about this, it's funny, I heard that when confronted, someone in charge said no one's ever died from smoking moldy weed, which we would all say and agree to, right? But not in a
it's actually not true.
all right, in a commercial market, you
If you have certain conditions of the lung,
I said
yes.
this. I know, like the Dr. Seuss thing, who had right.
Very rare.
Right,
Super rare.
right. But it's they're not really dying from the marijuana. They have a condition of vulnerability that the mold. Right. So
The mold.
So that for that and moldy marijuana symptoms associated with it are fever, coughing, like all the COVID symptoms. You know what I mean? So it's inflating. So I mean, there's a lot of things associated with that. I think, but I agree. There's not a lot of. I think it's going to require. When the people in charge don't know what they're doing, and there's a randomness of the oversight and no contemplation of, the end user. As many of these programs have been set up, it's difficult to even.
It's so hard, right? Eventually, we'll get to the day where it's like the food supply chain. Food supply chain isn't tested until somebody gets sick. Not tested at all, really. I think they have some random tests, but like 1 in 100,000. Huge batches, giant batches, regional batches. There's some random tests.
They're probably tougher on restaurants for keeping, right? I mean,
probably.
If we were looking at like regulatory,
you just couldn't feed people if you had to test everything so much. You just could not keep the flow of food to people. And when everybody in society smokes weed, you won't be able to test all the weed either. Hate to break it to you.
All right, listen, Jim's giving me.
Wait a minute, everybody's going to start smoking marijuana?
We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and talk about the Last Prisoner Project
all right.
on the other side of this. Okay,
I can go get my drink?
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
All right. This is Planet Green Trees episode number 494.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. Today, MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients.
Dr. Bud Green here. Welcome to
Bill Schuette led the charge against medical marijuana, and even after the will of the voters was decided and the support was enormous, he still continued to fight against the will of the voters, keeping patients from the medicine that they need. So I think it's important that we all speak up on what we think about this initiative. But when the voters have their say, their will must stand. The will of the voters.
Hi, my name is Jim Powers with Michigan Parents for Compassion. You are watching Planet Green Trees. Planet Green Trees is the #1 podcast for marijuana and marijuana-related discussion in the state of Michigan. We've been at it for over a decade. There's no greater place to get your news, and there's no greater host in that we have attorney Michael Komorn, who you should absolutely call and contact for all of your legal needs. Planet Green Trees is the #1 marijuana show in the state of Michigan. Tune in to Planet Green Trees every Thursday at 8 p.m.
Here's Michael Komorn with more Planet Green Trees.
Boom! Well, we're back. Thanks for staying with us.
Welcome
Episode number
back.
494.
We're back.
We're here with our special guest, Andrew DeAngelo. Andrew, we're going to talk about the Last Prisoner Project. Let me be upfront about a couple of things as we talk about this. You know, I've been practicing law for about 27, 28 years, and you know, as a younger lawyer, I kind of, you know, you're trying to figure things out and stuff and find your place. But to think, you know, it didn't take long before I realized that there was a cycle of events that continued to take place that were all getting nowhere. You know, like there's no end to it. And it just was like, and I saw that. It was really distressing, you know, and as a young lawyer, like you're trying to figure out, you know, value. So, I mean, of course, I always took, you know, value in any client that I represent. I'm trying to get the best result from. Like, you know, I can't fix the system as I'm doing it, but I can at least my job and my commitment and whatnot. But as I, you know, got out of that kind of, and I was doing a lot of marijuana cases, and it became, you know, some really interesting things happened. I saw, especially marijuana, how important it was in terms of the financing of the entire criminal justice system. And I mean, it became more and more apparent to me through the, you know, forfeiture laws and lab scandals and the amount of resources that they were using to test marijuana, you know, to 40%, and as an excuse why they weren't getting to the rape kits and whatnot. And, you know, I could rant and rave about this all long, and then the Michigan Supreme Court had appointed this trial court commission to investigate trial funding and whatnot. And they reported that the entire system is fucking broken. This is this commission of judges and the Supreme Court, because our district courts are relying 70% of its budget to be paid by the litigants that appear before it. It's a broken system. And if that's not bias, they say it's the appearance of bias. Who would think they could get a fair shake when the judge's light bills or the secretary's salary is based upon when they get your $250 for your traffic ticket? You know what I mean? Just at the beginning. So that's the first thing. And then, of course, our governor had done some report that she requested about the overcrowding jail problem. And it's laden with all these flaws and terrible things that Michigan does. They don't give warnings. They put people on probation for too long. They charge them too much money, which results in, you know, loss of, you know, revenue and, you know, other problems and getting arrested for that shit. So, like, you know, I've been screaming, yelling about, but I get these two artifacts of Michigan, call it jurisprudence, because they are involving, you know, legal research and stuff that confirm this, you know, and yet the beat goes on. And in every single court I go into, it nauseates me every single day knowing that nothing has been done to adjust this.
Nothing.
Nothing at all. And it was remarkable to me that all these cases on these dockets that were so controlled and had to be supervised with, you know, some severe authority, you know, be here on this day and don't be late, and then come back next week.
It's a very
And
important
who cares
date.
about those? All of a sudden became unessential. You know, go ahead. We'll talk to you when we'll get you back here.
we'll
So
take
this
care
is
of
the
it.
world we live in. I am. That was all disclosure. Like, there's nothing you're going to say that I'm not going to, you know, it's a terribly broken system. And I commend you for your, somewhere in here is a question, by the way. I know that this doesn't seem good. I was, but I could even launch into some stories of what we've been doing today and yesterday about motions to recuse judges that are just doing crazy stuff. And, you know, the way that just that inflames the, you know. Anyways, tell me some positive things that are going on. I know Michael Thompson, who was one of the last prisoners here, he's been identified in the media, has gotten his parole hearing, and it sounded very positive. I don't know how involved you are with that or know about it, but please indulge us with the successes and the optimism I should take away from this forthcoming information you're going to give us.
Yeah, well, there's some reason to be optimistic. There's a lot more reasons not to be, some of which you've mentioned. You know, look, when Harry Anslinger launched the war on weed all those many years ago, he was scared he was going to lose his job. He was scared he was going to lose his budget. His budget was getting cut in the Depression. He was a Republican. He was lucky Roosevelt reappointed him. So this idea of funding law enforcement and the criminal justice system on the back of weed is part of the origin story of Prohibition. And now, 100 years later, or almost 100 years later, it's just grown to this obscene thing that you identified with, you know, everybody's salary dependent on this crazy war. But the reasons for hope, the reason we started Last Prisoner Project, and the reason we have to go around what's screwed up. And we have to develop our own solutions, whether it be lab testing we talked a minute ago, whether it be impaired driving we talked about a minute ago, or whether it be people locked up for weed and getting them out. So Michael Thompson, who's locked up in Michigan, a Michigan resident, he did have a parole hearing. It did go very well. He's still locked up. We want to get him out before Christmas. The ball's in the parole boards. They have to rule and then go
Swipe
to the
of a pen.
Yeah.
Swipe of a pen.
Right.
Yeah. And it's been, and they've stonewalled this, and he already got COVID. We were trying to get him out before he got COVID. Of course, he already got COVID.
That's what I
He's
thought.
such a strong man. Even though he's a diabetic, he was able to overcome COVID in prison as a 69-year-old diabetic man. So you're talking about a very strong man. He made a promise to his mom before she died that he would get out, and so he's very motivated to get out. And he's still. So that's that. But we're hopeful that we're close with Michael Thompson.
Yeah.
We did get Richard DeLisi out last week. Richard DeLisi was the longest-serving nonviolent cannabis prisoner in Florida. He had served 32 years. 1989, the year I graduated from college, was the year he got locked up.
Wow.
And I just think about all the things I've done in the 32 years since I went to college, and wow, he didn't get to do any of those things. So, but we got him out, and that's probably Last Prisoner Project's biggest success story is Richard. We took the lead on that one. Some of the other people we've gotten out, it was big collaboration with a whole bunch of other groups. We had a lot of help with Richard too, but it was really our first one where we put the bulk of the resources and got the bulk of the attorneys working on it. So And if we can get the longest serving prisoner out, it stands to reason that there's hope for Michael. I'm sure Michael saw the news reports of Richard and sleep a little bit better that night. And all the other prisoners, you know, I'm writing a prisoner, a young guy who's been locked up for 20 some years. He's already served 8 years. And it's because, you know, he was just renting a house that some violent people poured some weed in, and he got caught up in a conspiracy charge that had some violence in it, even though he was in another state when the violence occurred. So you just hear all these different stories of all these different prisoners and that have gotten caught up in the system through cannabis, and the enormity of our task is huge. Yeah, we've sprung a few people. There's 40,000 in there, and as you alluded to, it takes so much time just to spring one. So many lawyers and so much pro bono work and so many letters and so many documents and so many petitions and so many briefs and so forth. And there's just the enormity of our task is I can't overstate. And you know, we're just starting. The community's really been there for Last Prisoner Project. We've raised a good amount of money our first year of operations, but it will take tens of millions of dollars, you know, over the course of the years and decades. But we hope to put ourselves out of business. We hope to get everybody out of prison, not just the United States, but around the world. And then we're going to close up shop, and that'll be the end of Last Prisoner Project, and I don't know. So that's our hope, and I thank you for letting me tell the story of Last Prisoner Project. We have a website, lastprisonerproject.org. If you're a cannabis company, there's programs you can plug into. If you're just an individual, we're doing a letter writing campaign. All of our prisoners were locked down for COVID right now. They can't even do phone calls right now. They can't do phone calls right now. So letters are the only way people have to communicate right now. So we have a letter writing campaign. I encourage everybody. You know, when you get a letter from a prisoner and you're a pen pal of a prisoner, there's fewer things you can do with your time that make you feel better about yourself than being in a pen pal relationship with a prisoner. And you don't even have to talk about politics. You can just talk about what it's like to be a human being and share your stories. And when you're locked up in prison, those letters mean an awful lot to you. You read them over and over again. And they really offer a lifeline. So that's another thing we're doing this holiday season.
Let me ask you something. We had I'm sorry.
Sometimes you may even find love in your pen pal relationships. I've been watching this series. There's 3 seasons now.
Oh my!
Love after lockup.
Oh boy!
I saw that.
So,
oh boy! You never know.
No,
You never know.
It was like it was a group. It was,
Options. The world is your oyster.
Yeah, and I just
more reasons to go to Last Prisoner Project out of.
Right.
That was interesting
Looking
because
for
it was.
love? LPP.
Hold on. It was it's like a support group for wives of, or people in relationships, people that were prisoners, and like what they're going through and sharing their create a support group. I mean, for the, I without getting in and making this seem very political, but I don't think it's anyway. Is and Howard Woolridge was on the show last week. You know Howard from he's a LEAP representative, or what was LEAP, and now he's the cowboy with the cops say legalize heroin and cocaine.
Yeah.
Great. I don't think the two of you could not have been. I couldn't ask enough. Wouldn't have been enough time. But he was reporting on the MORE Act, which doesn't sound like it's going to go anywhere. You feel free to comment on that. But I'm more curious to hear on what your thoughts are and expectations of the current, or I think it's the current administration, the soon-to-be administration, and in particular, what we know about their, terrible record on terrible record on drug policy. Do you have any expectations that that these issues we're talking about are going to be on their agenda in the next their term?
I don't think cannabis will play a serious role in the Biden administration or cannabis reform unless we win those 2 Georgia Senate seats. Then maybe the MORE Act could get through the Senate, but I think even then it loses because you have to have all 50 Democrats vote yes, and I think you probably lose a few. But if the Biden administration moves seriously on weed, it'll be after the midterms. I think they have to solve COVID, and they have to solve a whole bunch of other things the first couple of years, and they have to hold their own on the midterms, which will be hard. So I'd be surprised if we get to the front burner before the midterms. But look, it's our job to get the Biden administration over the line. It's our job to be operatives and activists, and you know, it'll be a great race once he's sworn in, and we're gonna put the pedal to the metal and try real hard, of course.
What's your take on Kamala Harris being you know, on the cutting edge of the marijuana industry at a time when it was not where we are now, and probably a time when she was either I mean, she may have been county prosecutor, but later became the attorney general.
She's real late to the party, right? But and she's, you know, the Democrats, especially ones that can win national office like her, they're
not left wing. I mean, they're not on that side. They're central, pro police, right.
Yeah, they're moderate people, and they're very cautious, and they don't get ahead of any issue. It's not just cannabis. I mean, this whole defund the police, whether you think that language is good or not, an idea of reallocating resources in terms of public safety. They relate to that party too, right? So I don't think it's reasonable for us to expect politicians to be super visionary people. What I think is fair to expect from Biden and Harris is, you know, they won and the progressives lost. So once they're in power, they're going to make decisions accordingly. And we're going to raise hell and try to get their attention. And if we can triangulate well between them and the Republicans and our base and our constituents, we'll make some progress. If we get outmaneuvered, we're going to get our asses handed to us, and we probably won't make much progress. You know, our biggest challenge at the federal level is getting attention because COVID and the economy, and there's just so many other fish to fry. And just getting that vote on the MORE Act was really hard because they were taking a lot of heat and incoming, saying that it wasn't appropriate to vote on marijuana.
I saw that.
Cannabis when you got COVID and all this other, which is just a bullshit cop out.
Yeah, it is.
Total bullshit cop out. They should have done the vote before the election. They wouldn't have lost as many seats.
COVID killed cannabis. Oh no. Really bad.
You know, I think they should have done the vote beforehand. I think they would have done better down ballot than they did. But, you know, the same people will look me in the eye and say I'm dead wrong. We would have done worse. Who knows? One doesn't know.
At the end of the day, though, do we really want? I mean, what impact is if federal legalization took place? Or unscheduling cannabis is it going to have on, you know, the industry? I mean, I'm not real optimistic about that. I mean, in a way, I like the idea that the industry could grow as it remains right now with the people that are participating instead of the others who dominate every other marketplace right now. You know what I mean? That's my one concern of going there. I mean,
there's a lot of concerns. I certainly share that concern. And, you know, it may be a blessing that it takes a number of more years because what we see at the state level with these terrible frameworks, it's most likely that will happen at the federal level. So, and it could be really terrible.
Right.
So
like with hemp, like what they're doing with hemp.
Yeah.
Like they're messing up the whole hemp thing.
There's a whole lot of really other horrible
I
things
share
that
the
can happen
concern.
at that
I
level.
definitely share the concern, but at the end of the day, like you said, I think that the change of ending prohibition is probably slightly better than the downside of the terrible frameworks that will come with it.
All right, so here, I know I was very, very pessimistic about this quote-unquote justice system, but these are my positive recommendations. They may be things you can insert into the marketplace of ideas. Number one is that we need to get a vaccine for black robes disease. These are these people that get elected into judicial office and then forget where they came from. All right, that's a joke. Okay, never mind. The next one is I had a crazy experience that I think, as I was talking about, I practiced law in Detroit for a long time, and talking back in the 2000s and, late 90s, 2000s. In fact, this case that was so crazy, a client who was charged with murder, and he had a second murder case, and it was like a month after 9/11. You can imagine what it was like picking a jury back then. Anyways, the judge came out after the jury got the case. He goes, Komorn's guy is going to walk not guilty, and this co-defendant will probably get second degree. Anyway, they found him guilty of murder in the first degree, and, it was, it's crazy. It's something to deal with, you know what I mean? And it was very light evidence, and a lot of weird shit happened. Anyway, so I put it aside, and a lot of things happened since then. I kind of kept in touch with the guy. So then I get a call from the same office, the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office, that tells me, hi, I'm so-and-so from the Conviction Integrity Unit. We're a special unit that's been funded by, I think, some federal funding, and we have a secure office inside this other office that we don't talk to. And we've been examining your case for a year, they say. And we want to tell you that every single thing that you thought, calling out, that was under, they weren't giving you, blah, blah, you were 100% right. And we are setting aside the conviction of your client from 20 fucking years ago, okay? And the co-defendants. And this starts with this, the defendant sends in a form saying, I declare I'm innocent. And then they'll begin to investigate. Now, at the same time, the same office released a list of what they're calling their Giglio witnesses, which are officers who have been to be funded, they still need to be trained, and we still need safety, and we need them to be good at it. What we need to do is make them civilly liable and remove the qualified immunity. Those three things are much easier to swallow. Anyways,
but maybe, I mean, transformational change needs to occur with respect to the criminal justice system in this country. So there's a lot of different ways to do it.
I know. My suggestion was that to run like a ballot initiative that every single office that's prosecuting cases has a conviction integrity. You can't have. Just because, and it shouldn't be a shocker. Nobody should think that every single conviction was without a flaw.
Yeah, it should be pretty standard procedure that these things, that we ensure justice and that innocent people don't get falsely convicted. That should be a basic tenet of the whole kit and caboodle in a free country. In a free country, you don't take people's freedom away lightly.
I know. If you brought this up to prosecutors, though, that many of them would be offended that you would even suggest it.
We're in Michigan.
Free country. You should not take freedom away lightly. You have to do.
Swipe the pen over here. Yeah.
I know.
Except for with Michael Thompson.
We're
still waiting on that pen swipe.
We talk about this quite a bit. The real principle is that the Constitution protect. I mean, goes without saying, but the Constitutional protections are to protect the citizens from the government. And, in someplace we made a sharp turn that granted this special authority to the law enforcement community that they can do no wrong. The protections extend so far. They are, I'm not saying it's not a difficult job, but they've gotten this, they don't lie. You know what I mean? Their word, as it's said, is, gets in the, breaches the Fourth Amendment all the time. It's the way they hop over. It's it's an impenetrable like immunity of credibility that they get. It's very strange. I don't think it was ever intended that way as we started, but it's evolved into this wall of power.
No, it's just been one thing at a time. I remember when Ronald Reagan was in office and they were saying prosecutors have their hands tied behind their back. They can't win any cases. We have to give the prosecutors a lot more power. Well, look at it now, where they have everything to the point where they got 98% plea deals. How can that possibly be justice?
It's not. It's not even close.
I mean, it's
an attack on freedom.
Yeah, it's an attack on freedom, right? And you know, it was. I remember. I mean, freedom isn't free. That whole slogan in the '90s. I remember Ronald Reagan. Oh well, if you don't have anything to hide, why do you mind being searched? Oh, why do you mind getting a piss test? If you're not a drug addict, why do you care? Go ahead and write your freedom away, you know? And the idea that examining your urine is not an unreasonable search. What is, if not that?
Yeah, really. Jeez.
Yeah, you know, if not that, your bodily fluid is now subject to search. You know, who didn't read that amendment right? So yeah, it's again, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so anyway,
although it's not a case, I was just thinking about this. Alan, would you agree that a septic tank from someone's house would be akin to garbage on the street?
Ooh.
And you could actually, like a sort of do a trash pull.
Could they totally get into your septic
No
tank?
way.
Out of the septic tank?
Come
That's
on,
private
what do you
property,
think?
dude.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you have to dig
it's
through the
waste.
yard.
It's waste.
Well,
Yeah,
what about if it's
but
city
it's not-
sewer?
no.
What if it's city sewer? Once it gets into
I'm
the
sorry.
You don't think that would hold up?
Once it goes into the city sewer, I guess those turds are public property.
That's what I'm saying.
It might be.
Yeah, but that's not a septic tank.
No, it's not.
They could put a trapping that comes from your toilet. And
Yeah,
then
they're going to
they
put a
could test
piss
your-
tracer in your pipes, Alan.
I don't know. I mean, you know,
Yeah, I think once it's in the sewer system of the city, then they can look at it. But there's
But then they'd have to go through a whole DNA thing analysis.
Oh, yeah,
to
there'd be
figure out
some.
whose is whose,
There'd be
and
some turd
everybody on the
science
board
going on
would have
there.
There's
submit a
clearly an
sample.
interest,
That would be
as
just
Ronald
a
Reagan
big old
proclaimed.
shitty mess.
You know,
Well, if you don't have anything to hide.
look, man.
Oh boy.
I mean, that people have been dragged out of their homes for weed for decades and decades and decades, man.
That's right.
well, this is what I was going to
It
say.
won't hurt them to poop in a cup. Okay?
That's right.
Let me ask you this. You know, Michigan, there's a lot of talk in Michigan of this, like a criminal justice reform movement to a certain degree. Oakland County here, not Oakland, California, but Oakland County, which is one of the, I don't know, what do you call it?
I'd say it's the affluent county in
a more
Michigan.
affluent.
Biggest affluent county in
It
the
just a 4-term prosecutor incumbent was defeated by a mom who, kind of who was a criminal justice reform program platform. The sheriff did not win the ran with her, but also in Washtenaw County, where Ann Arbor is, they also elected a reform candidate. Is California experiencing this?
What about Macomb County? You forget about Macomb County? You don't like Pete Lucido?
Macomb is like a weird place.
Yeah,
It's
but
not,
he's Mr. Criminal Reform.
yes, and just to be fair, those were all Democrats that I mentioned, but Macomb County, who gave the election to Trump in 2016,
whatever,
they had a scandal in their Democratic.
It was scandalous.
Prosecutor was indicted. His office and home were raided by the feds. That doesn't normally happen, right? But he left, and then the seat became open, and a Republican senator who led the charge in forfeiture reform. He was a friend of ours, on these issues, and he was and he's a former. What's that? What's that, Jamie?
He's a libertarian.
He's libertarian.
Yeah.
He's a former defense lawyer, so his firm still exists in Macomb. But he championed that, and I know that Michigan's went through this huge reform from being the most archaic in terms of expungements to the most progressive, and this Lucido was part of it. And I'll tell you something: the criminal justice reform, that whole report, the criminal, that report of the system's broken. They have created a committee that's, I don't know if they're doing anything, but they're at least meeting, and it's a it's a bipartisan party. So there's there's a huge, I don't say huge, there's interest in talking points in both parties on this subject, and I don't know if anything's really getting done, but there's talk.
Yeah, there's talk in California, of course, and places like Oakland and San Francisco, a little more talk than places like Fresno and Bakersfield. But consensus, I think, is still quite a ways away, number one. Number two, here in California, law enforcement and the unions that represent them are very strong, very, very powerful. It's going to be hard. They're very well organized, very well funded, and it's going to be difficult. But we need reform very badly in California with respect to the way we administer justice. It's a disgrace. We had a terrible problem in San Quentin with COVID, and they just let them die. I mean, they didn't get them out. They didn't try to get people out. I mean, it really was a pathetic effort that they put forward there, and it was just the neglect. I got locked up in a California jail a couple times in the last 20 years of my life, and they're concentration camps, man. These are not like what you'd even call a jail. These are like concentration camps.
Inhumane.
Really what they are. And it's really in a bad way here. So reform is desperately needed. I don't know when we'll arrive at consensus. I tend to take a more radical view of these things because I think that we need radical change. And so I'm perfectly fine using phrases like defund the police. And I'm perfectly fine saying that, we're spending far too much money on cops and law enforcement in jails and prisons, and we should stop it.
Yeah.
And it's disproportionate in the way that it is being executed and applied. I mean, that's the other thing. It's clearly...
There's like all these laws you don't need.
Right.
How many laws do you really need? There's like tens of thousands of laws. How many laws do you really need? Okay, where you take somebody's freedom away from them. What? How many? 20?
10.
I don't know. Really, in a free country, in a free society, and I mean, you read books like
freedom isn't free.
By Brian.
If you don't wear a mask, you go to jail.
You got people locked up in this country for writing a false check for $50 for years and years and years and years and years and years and years. You have these 3 strike laws, these multiple offender laws. These are draconian. These are beyond draconian. These are like, these are, I don't know, these are totalitarian structures. Not a free society, not what free society, not what liberty, not what our Constitution says at all. It's been totally bastardized.
Just the entire use of the judicial system, I think, has been an abuse. Like you would never need to have X amount of judges, X amount of courtrooms, if you didn't have the war on drugs. And you wouldn't need Court of Appeals and, Court of Claims and, and different, district courts or whatever. And you wouldn't need all that if you didn't prohibit marijuana. It could create so much more work and so many more opinions that were written and so much more, killing of trees.
So many
by
more
lawyers.
jobs.
I mean, just so much stuff. So much stuff because
it
of the.
would be transformative, and this is what we need. We need transformative things, and if legalizing cannabis is the most. That's why I work in cannabis, because to me it's the most transformative thing we can do. With our time and our energy.
Have marijuana arrests stopped in California completely? There's a trend that the arrests are still going up nationally. You know what I mean? Like there's more arrests this year than there was last year.
No, I mean, yes, we are seeing a lot less arrests, especially in places like Oakland, but not where it should be by any means. And now there's this whole Prohibition 2.0 between the licensed and the unlicensed people.
Are those convictions or arrestables, or are they more?
They're smash and grabs for the most part.
Oh.
But no, because I'm just. What do you account for the arrests going up nationally with the? Yeah, what do you?
Just stops that legalization's happening.
In the state, in the states where it's still prohibited, you're saying like that's what Howard thought.
I mean, it's like even a lot of these frameworks, there's still, it's a very small amount of weed that's legal.
Yeah.
And if you have more than that small amount, you get busted. And it's the same as it was before. Maybe it's a misdemeanor, not a felony, but you get busted, and it's so easy for law enforcement to collect collars with weed busts, and as long as they're incentivized to collect collars over and over again, which they are, weed people just don't fight back. I mean, it's just
an easy deal.
It's an easy bust, man. I mean, it's not like somebody's gonna start shooting back at them or doing something crazy. So what it should be is get the crazies and the violence. Those are the collars that should incentivize them, not collars like cannabis.
What was
I would hope.
Elephant. Oh yeah, I was gonna say, it's gonna take a little while for this to happen, but prohibition. Birthed like a platypus, and it's going to take a little while for it to evolve into an elephant.
Yeah.
Right?
Thank you.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, man. The elephant took a long time to become what it is today.
Right.
But sure,
it's just to come back. It's like a mess of some kind of whatever this is that we're living. There was this animal that is this. I don't know, a platypus or whatever, something. It's like a deformity, maybe even.
I hope our change is not incremental. I hope it can be a little bit faster than nature does it with evolution, because we are humans with a brain. So we should be able to do a little bit better, I hope. But the planet's going to be fine, and eventually all the plants and animals will be fine. It's really up to us if we want to stick around for the party.
Yeah. Good point.
That's it.
All right.
This was an excellent show. We had a lot of good stuff to talk about.
Is that the end of that segment?
Yeah. Let me ask you one final question. I read a story that retired IDF upper hand had told Trump that we had contact with aliens. Some of them were living in the moon, and called them off for to stop them from war. What do you think about any of that? You think any of that's really true? Think it's that level of communication?
No, I spend my time dealing with real things that are in front of me, not hypothetical. Consider that a hypothetical. That's way beyond.
Sure. Okay.
I mean, it's just my thing about conspiracy theories are this: where's the confidence to execute them?
Right.
You're right.
Show me some competence where somebody could actually execute a conspiracy theory. I mean,
Here you go.
maybe
Marijuana. Marijuana is the biggest conspiracy, other than marijuana, you would say, right? Because even though they've done it in an incompetent way, but it's still the biggest conspiracy, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, but it's not being hidden from anybody.
No, I know. The problem I think recently is that for something to qualify, the threshold for qualifying as a conspiracy has gotten really low. It's really easy to, create a conspiracy these days, and
yeah,
they're devaluing the other good ones that are out there. That's the problem, right? Just kidding.
Yeah.
But
But,
Well, this conspiracy was to lie to the American people about the reefer madness when, in fact, the real reason they wanted to make it illegal was the textile benefits of the plants.
Well, yeah. My read of history is a little different, but I think the textile was collateral damage, and it was really about giving law enforcement something new to do now that alcohol prohibition was over.
Here we go.
So,
Here we go. Last kind of topics, and I'll let you go. I'm sorry, you've been very appreciate you hanging in with us. And so, the city of Ann Arbor decriminalized psilocybin mushrooms. That prosecutor in Washtenaw, I said, ran on a criminal justice reform, came out publicly and supported it, which I thought was fascinating. It's a pretty high level endorsement. We've discussed, and then Oregon is decriminalized all of that, and even created places to go and maybe even use it and whatnot, and some safety zones and whatnot. So I'm curious to know how California is on that. But more importantly, we debated in here, if that's going to take place, don't you need to create a safe source for those individuals to get those drugs? And because right now the prohibition lends itself to danger. If we're really going to, and it may not be in the forethought right now, but let's be intellectual enough where we could say, okay, this catches on and it's working. Where's that going? Are we going to be licensing individuals like we are for the medical? Or is it going to be a pharmaceutical thing? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes. Well, I think decrim is a really good first step. People have been scoring magic mushrooms and psilocybin for decades without a massive public health problem. The worst thing that happens is you trip too hard and you have a bad trip. If you're in a bad setting, certainly you don't want to be driving a car or operating machinery, but very few people do that, or almost no one. Psilocybin is the safest. Cannabis and psilocybin are the two safest compounds in society, legal or illegal, in terms of intoxicants. So decrim is a really good first step. As we introduce these compounds into society, I want nonprofit. I don't want for-profit. I want nonprofit models, and I think we have to learn all the mistakes that cannabis has made, and not make the same mistakes.
Well, I'm saying, okay, so the Oregon bill addresses, it's not, so, I mean, I think what it's doing in principle is to remove the criminal sanctions associated with the possession of these particular drugs, and to give people a place to go to maybe even use without judgment, and get the concept that if they're going to, give them an opportunity if they want to quit. It's not going to come by throwing them in a jail, and let's say this catches on. My point is that if this is the intention of it working, it doesn't become problematic if they don't have a source. You know what I mean? Like if the idea is to let them, do it on their terms, so to speak, part of that requires them access to the drugs. It could be heroin, could be cocaine, could be meth, could be crocodile or whatever, I mean, who knows what it is?
You got to figure out the supply chains, but look at the problem we're having with lab testing of cannabis. You really want to, you know what I mean?
Well, I'm just saying it's a public safety issue, and as we're doing this, I think it's it's worth discussing this question. When we have and are trying to create these environments for this new view of how we're going to deal with this public health issue, right? Not a criminal justice issue. The supply is going to matter, and does this come with the, these ideas come with the creating a supply of some kind of, what does that look like? Is it physician based? Is it?
I think in the beginning it's probably clinics. I hope it's nonprofit clinics, hopefully administered by MAPS and Rick Doblin's group. If you don't know MAPS, go check out maps.org, MAPS. And they've done the most work in this field. They have the most data, both with psilocybin and MDMA, and they're getting these compounds through FDA trials. And the idea is you go into a clinic. It's not a clinical setting. it's a clinic that you have a trip room that you go trip in. You have guides. The trip room's nice. You lie down in a comfortable place. You have 2 people there. There's doctors on site.
Sure.
And you trip, okay? And you're doing, and you have all this stuff you do before you trip, questionnaires and therapy and talking therapy and intentions you set and why you're doing it, and then you trip, and then you have after sessions where you talk about the trip and how you're going to integrate it in your life and how it's going to help you with depression or whatever it is that you went there for. Yes, I think those are the first integrations. Decrim allows people score some mushrooms, go home and trip. Decrim is a good umbrella in terms of the supply chain. Look, you got to crawl before you can walk, and what I worry about is if we move too fast on the supply chain, we'll have unintended consequences. Psilocybin is not hard to grow. It's not hard to get your own mushroom kit. It's not hard to source these things at all. I believe it's not even hard to test. You can even get home testing kits. So those are the steps that I would like to see. Now you have all these for-profit companies and publicly traded companies now doing this. So I think you're probably going to have for-profit clinics too. And they'll all compete, and the ones that create the better experiences will prevail, I guess. That's sort of how the integration is going to happen, and then eventually there'll be more hospitality models and other types of models, safe spaces for people to have these compounds in, and cultural experiences too, involving music and other things too eventually. So you're already doing that at places like Burning Man and Grateful Dead shows and so forth.
Sure.
It's already one giant trip fest. So these things these integrations are best a little bit at a time with these compounds. When we go from just a few million people doing these compounds to tens of millions or hundreds of millions, I worry, a little bit that people won't be in the right setting, won't have the right education, won't understand compounds and get in trouble with them.
What's interesting is Michigan is a right to try state, which means if the substance has passed, I think it's level 2 or 3 trials, which both psilocybin and MDMA have, then you can treat patients with it. So we have scenarios in Michigan. I don't know if California's got that right to try law, but there's inevitably going to be a supply chain. And, from a lawyer's perspective, I think it's bad. You don't want the doctors acquiring it. You don't want or the clinicians acquiring it. It should be, it should be from some other, and I mean, they have to acquire it at some point to treat the patient.
I mean, it's interesting. Kaiser, Kaiser has ketamine rooms. I've noticed they have ketamine rooms at Kaiser, where I go to Kaiser in Oakland. They had a ketamine.
Do they?
As well.
Wow, okay.
They had a ketamine thing, which surprised me, actually. Right. I was there for a little procedure I had to have done, and I was like, whoa, they have a ketamine room. And it was just a room that they turned all the lights on and painted dark and stuff. It was not very well done. I wouldn't want to trip in there. But they had it. It was there. And they're getting the ketamine from somewhere. I imagine, a pharmaceutical source. So, we're starting to slowly, and I have great hope for these compounds to really, just like cannabis, these plants are going to change humanity's inward wiring and make us, I hope, better to each other and to our planet.
Excellent.
That's the great promise of these compounds. It really is. It's just like cannabis. It's the great promise.
Amen.
Compounds. Yeah. So anyway, that's how. And the great world of psychedelics is just beginning. It's just dawning, and I'm pleased. If you haven't read Michael Pollan's book, How to Change Your Mind, do it. If you haven't read Alexander and Ann Shulgin's book, P-Call and T-Call, do it. and there's a great body of knowledge now that people can learn a lot about, and it's science based and it's data based now, and we're coming along. I'm really proud of Rick Doblin and Maps. Maps.org is another thing to check out. They've done a tremendous job. You know, psychedelics got a really bad branding in the 60s. And it's taken us a long time to rebrand these compounds as something good, not bad. And we just have to make sure we don't slip up and you know, have some of the same problems occur that happened in the 60s and 70s.
Who are those authors again? Sorry, Michael.
The authors were maps.org. Name them for our listeners.
Yeah, maps.org. Alexander and Ann Shulgin, and they have a book called T-Call and a book called P-Call, P-I-K-H-A-L, and T-I-K-H-A-L. They're those, I would say those three books, and How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan, those three books are the Bibles, I would say, or three of the Bibles of psychedelic study right now.
Final question: where do you think these compounds that you're talking about and their impact on our consciousness play in the direction of technology and AI, if at all? Do you see any kind of, you know?
Well, I don't know a lot about AI, but where they did clearly have an impact. You couldn't have had Star Wars without LSD. You couldn't have had a lot of the music that we love, a lot of the sound technology that we love, a lot of the lighting technology that we love, a lot of the cultural technologies that we've come to know and love, heavily influenced by psychedelics. I'm not an AI or a technology person. It makes sense that I'm scared. I'm really scared of the robots. I think we should just make them, just leave that alone for a while. But I think we have to trip a lot more before we start making robots. We're just not. We're too transactional right now, and we have to become different as a species. We're trapped in a default mode network of transactions and logistical
conquering, yeah,
and it's just killing us. So I don't know a whole lot about AI. I'm scared of it. I know that much.
All the movies with AI never seem to end well.
Yeah. I'm thinking that one of the ways, the final serum to not, because when the computer takes over and, they've outdone themselves, become smarter, maybe psychedelics is going to be the answer.
The control mechanism.
Make sure the robot can trip.
Right.
So they'll have compassion on us inefficient humans that have to do all these inefficient things all the time and are always worried about, who loves us or who we're going to love all the time. And we can't get anything done.
Hopefully
that's our only chance. We got to get them to get some empathy, right? Without that, we're doomed, right?
Yeah, exactly. Make sure they love us.
I wonder if the robots will be like Bender on Futurama.
We need an empathy drug.
It could be a lot worse.
All right, Andrew, you've been fantastic as always. Fascinating. You go on for hours. I appreciate you.
Thank you, guys.
We'll have you on again in a few more months.
Yeah, we would love to catch up on things. And literally, my best to you and your family, and we wish you well. And thank you very much for coming on tonight. Appreciate you.
Happy holidays.
Yeah, man. Appreciate y'all, and be safe this winter in Michigan. See you on the other side.
All right. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much.
Happy holidays.
Safe.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Boom.
Jim, what do you think? What do you think about the psychedelics and AI? Is that a thing? Do they correlate?
I don't think there's really a correlation. I do think the discussion surrounding AI is interesting.
I think what he's talking about is where we are as a species right now in our evolution. that we're creating bad robots because we're all not in a good place because we're still in the transactional.
No, the robot would say you're inefficient because you care about love. And your feelings are hurt.
You are an
And you
emotional
yelled at that
animal.
person. That's not what robots do. And they get down, you stupid human, and they kill you. You know.
You're done.
So the only solution to that is he was saying, got to give them some empathy drugs to get them to realize, oh, you poor humans, you're okay. You know, we love you too. There's love. You know, that's it. You know, because as we evolve in this, and he's talking about transactional, like we are. That, You know, that doesn't necessarily mean like. In a way, it means it's all about
It's
some
all
kind
about,
of
I'm giving you this,
something
you're
or
getting,
acquiring
I'm getting
something,
this from you, and-
acquiring, accomplishing,
Right.
whatever, right? Jim, is that what he's referring to? You think?
I do.
And,
I do.
And that,
I'm sure they will be empathetic robots.
Like what came to mind is like the
Well, there's a guy that just straight up married one.
Yeah, there you go.
Who?
Yeah.
I don't know
I don't
his
know
name.
if that's a legal marriage.
Well, it wasn't in the U.S., I don't believe.
What?
Oh,
Somebody
that
married
was in Saudi Arabia.
somebody married a robot?
Yeah.
They can't procreate, I don't think, can they, Jim?
I'll have to get back with you on that one.
Not
Well,
at this point.
Do you have to be able to procreate to be able to consider it a marriage?
I don't think so.
Because if you have two ladies or two guys,
It depends how you define is or marriage. That's what I would say, right? Because if it's, I don't know. I would say
That sounds
Might be too
Clintonian.
I know.
might be too deep for a convo at 10:25.
Yeah,
That could be.
I know I'm too tired.
Listen, a lot of people talk about this AI shit that it's already happening.
It is.
Like,
It is already.
Like it's already happening. Like there's already computers that are probably capable of, given the right input, to how to figure out a way to
Tell you,
take over.
I'd marry a robot.
Yeah.
I'd totally marry a robot.
You may be forced into it.
Just
I'd
like
be okay
Carl
with that.
You may be forced
yeah,
into it. They-
exactly. I'd
They
be
may,
like, what
they may
the
kill
hell?
all the men and force you to marry and take some kind, and then dust their keyboards all day. Who knows?
Keyboard dusters.
That's
I mean, I think actually probably marrying a robot might be a pretty good way to go. Like the typical issues that one would have with a spouse, you
Yeah.
may not have those with a robot.
Yeah, you just gotta
Exactly, Amanda. They
program
won't
them
be
correctly.
asked, and they'll just do what they're asked and do.
Bam!
what
I
you're
like the
saying
way you
is
think.
the human species needs to.
Completely kidding. I was just like playing devil's advocate with this.
The human species, particularly the men, need to evolve into a place where they can be
From the-
programmed.
Non-biological wood is much more reliable.
Yes, it totally is. You can just punch in the time frame, like 30 minutes, okay?
Right. I mean, like the idea that the communication is debated, right? Like if people's needs to get along are, if you remove, whatever it is that interferes, and you're just able to program it into the other person, right?
Yeah.
Without debate.
Right.
This is what I need you to do.
Exactly. Go
You don't even have to say-
get some water, get some coffee, get some dog food. I'll see you back. You know,
Yes.
and there's no oh, wait for 5 minutes
Yeah.
to do it. It's like,
Right.
okay, I'll see you in a minute, honey. And that's what I'm talking about. Okay?
Michael, I don't think we ever heard what your spirit animal would be.
Yes, please.
Is it, a spirit
Would
animal?
it be
Well,
a bearded dragon?
no.
No.
I would orca. Yeah, the orca would be my
Orca. So
Yes.
the
Majestic.
killer whale.
Magical.
killer whale. Or I'm a big fan
Well,
of
orca
the.
and killer whale, the same thing.
Yes, I also like the.
They have their very own language.
I'm fascinated by the wild dogs pack, like the African wild dogs, because they're very, they work in a group, and they take care of the puppies and the sick, and when they hunt, they knock it out 8 of 10 times, lions are like 3 out of 10, and they're
wow.
vicious,
No kidding.
they show, they got all the flavors. They can be nice,
Yeah.
sweet, tender, and just they rip apart a fawn, you know what I mean?
We could the fact that they leave you behind for dead, I guess. But
Michael, what about time period? What time
Yeah.
period would you want to live in?
I said last time I said I'd go back to the frontier with a caveat of lacking in political correctness of that devastation of the Native Americans. But I like the American frontier, kind
Oregon
of
Trail.
carving out your little area and knocking down trees and I don't think I could ever survive it. I'd like to.
Didn't you play the Commodore 64 Oregon Trail? I mean,
I
weren't you?
did.
The Oregon Trail, right? I mean,
There's a show. They do an episode of Family
I
Guy.
feel like, Michael, you'd have to live somewhere in the southern region to be able to grow your little garden to establish yourself as a vegan.
I'm more fascinated by that period of time. I guess I couldn't live there, you know what I mean? But I find it to be, I mean, it's very rare that, putting aside all the civil liberties and violations of other people, but the idea where it's like an open land that people are, kind of pounding out, and where it's not already owned by the government, or you got to serfdoms and whatever. You know what I'm saying?
I completely agree with you. That's kind of why I chose the time period that I chose. It was like it's more interesting to me historically than it is like that I would want to live in it. It's just always a time period that interests me that I want to learn about.
I would also say potentially like the Renaissance era of our enlightenment of humans. You know what I mean?
Yes.
The switch over from the historical domination of the institution of the church in everyone's life to the point where all of a sudden living on Earth and as reflected in the art and statutes and buildings. Even though even though it turns into what would be described as what is it? What I'm trying to say? I'm trying to say like excess. I'm saying it becomes now opulence. Like it's the other side of it. Like opulence wasn't a thing during the Middle Ages. Like nobody would indulge themselves in things. You were waiting to go to the afterlife. You know what I mean? But now it became like right. Now we're here. Yeah, I'm gonna get fat. People are fat. They're eating and drinking and bodies.
The Renaissance and like their art and like all of the history around that. It always intrigued me as well.
Well, all the great ideas that made our country, the free capitalism and freedom of speech, and there was ideas that arose out of it, right? Ellen, were you?
Marijuana made this country great too. I mean, George Washington's soldiers would have frozen Valley Forge without their hemp clothing.
Heck yeah.
Jamie, who is on item number 8 on his checklist of getting things done during Planet Green Trees.
Yeah, no kidding. My gosh, you make us look bad.
His
Talk
reference
about
was
sloth. Like we're all sloths compared to you.
Yeah, sloth guy, because they're laid back, not a lot expected of them. That was funny.
Yeah, that's a totally opposite. Like
Jamie wanted to go back to the Cataclysm. What year, Jamie, was that? Because I want to tell you this thing that we were talking about this before the show.
Pre-Cataclysm. I don't know, like 12,000 years ago,
That's what I
or
said.
somewhere in that range.
That's what I said.
And
Okay.
hang out in Atlantis.
All right. So.
yeah, that'd be cool.
So, is there a dispute that there was not people living at that time? What is that? Money?
No, I'm not sure if there's a dispute. Like common knowledge would say there wasn't that type of civilization or advancement in technology and things like that at that time.
All right. And what do we say? The 2 point whatever million years ago is what, the Ice Age or the dinosaurs? What was that number we talked about?
Million.
2.5 million. Is that when the dinosaurs went out, or is it more than that?
Yeah, well, more than that. Like 65 million years ago is when the dinosaurs went down, and the shrew-like mammal then was able to thrive, in which we and all.
Anyways, I was watching.
Larger mammals came from, or whatever.
I was watching something on YouTube, so it must be true. But it was like a, it was like kind of a educational institution doing some kind of historical rendition. It was really cool because it was all animated of the comet hitting the Earth, and it starts with the idea that this thing's been going for 1 million years in space, headed towards Earth. You know what I mean? And when it hits, the impact all around. So I was thinking about your thing, because that they don't show any humans living at that time, and I think we understand that, right? Other than the Flintstones. During the Flintstones, you had the dinosaurs and the humans. So that's the one piece of evidence I think that makes the case. But during this dinosaur phase, the It was just wild watching the thing unfold. You know what I mean? It was. I'm sure the same story could be made for this, the cataclysm of this 12,000 years ago. And the idea is that the civilizations have evolved since then to where we are right now. Out of what? From fish? No. Some other kind of monkey-like human being. Is that what we're saying? 12,000 years we evolved that fast?
Well, man has progressed in various forms from, what they call Neanderthal and different animals that trace us back to apes. But the ultimate theory is that we evolved from, the apes.
Right, but no one's suggesting that the entire civilization was wiped out in the last ice age. We're just saying that the civilizations were much more advanced than what they were made out to be, such as the, Cro-Magnon or whatever preceded that, or whatever genetic modifications, et cetera. Right? That's what we're talking about?
Yes.
But Jamie,
we became what we became.
Right. So it was wild watching the whole thing fall out. It was a pretty big ordeal when that comet hit 2.5 million years ago.
It all starts there.
Good show, Michael.
All right, very good. Thanks for hanging in, everybody.
Hold
Appreciate
on.
it.
Hold on. We got to go around the room.
Let's go around the room a little bit.
All
What are
right.
we gonna?
Going around the room?
What are you going around the room?
talking about?
We're going around the room.
What are we saying?
What are we saying?
Just anything, really.
I'm sorry. I was talking way too much.
No, it was good. It was a good show. Are we having a show next week?
That's a great question. What is the date? Today's the 17th, which would make next week the 24th, which would be Christmas Eve. So that would either be one of two choices: a special episode of three choices. Actually, you could choose.
Like a Wednesday or a
We could
Friday.
do a Wednesday or a Friday. We could do a special New Year's or Christmas Eve and spend together, or we could just replay. So we're just maybe just surprise the listeners, and we'll let everybody know.
Yeah, we'll surprise the listeners.
Yeah.
That's good. All right.
So keep an eye on the Facebook page.
Yeah.
To be determined, as they say.
Yeah.
Hmm.
A lot of it'll depend on how Alan's feeling. We usually let him drive the boat on those kind of
He
decisions.
looks like he's feeling
Jamie, what are you
pretty
eating
hot
there?
tonight, doesn't he? A little hot.
All right.
Ice cream.
That looks pretty good, actually.
Hmm.
Looks like an eclair.
It's like a vegan.
Cookies and cream ice cream bar.
Yeah, it's vegan.
You sure about that?
Did the ice cream truck go by your house? I didn't see a stop out there. That looks like one of those. Like
No, it does though in the summer, but no, this is the most nuclear chemical based dessert product that I can find.
What happened to Fraser? Did he bailed and Ellie's gone too?
Yeah, everybody's
All right,
pretty
fine.
much gone.
Dead
It's not
enough.
that late. You guys are okay. Fine.
I mean,
Fraser was having bandwidth issues.
it's a little late.
Okay,
Kind
fine.
of.
Let's call it.
Late,
Let's
but,
call
I
it.
mean, okay. We can,
Dan, you had enough?
you know he has.
Shut it down.
Shut her down.
All right. Thanks for hanging out.
Good
everybody.
night.
Alrighty.
Goodbye, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
All right.
Peace out, everybody. Be safe. Good night.
Good night.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org.
Before you plead, call me, Attorney Michael Komorn.
An important and historical farm crop in American agriculture has returned after having been classified as a controlled substance and illegal. On December 20th, 2018, the President signed the Farm Bill, also known as the Agriculture Improvement Act of 2018, into law. The signing of the act was great news for the hemp industry, which amended the definition of marijuana in the Federal Controlled Substances Act. Hemp is now defined as the plant, Cannabis sativa L, and any part of the plant, growing or not, with less than 0.3% THC concentration on a dry basis. The plant itself is no longer a controlled substance. Hemp is one of the most versatile plants on earth. From clothing, fiber, paper, building materials, hempcrete, biofuels, CBD, and medical uses, it has been a part of America's industry for over 200 years. Even the United States Constitution was drafted on hemp paper. The time is now. If you're thinking of getting in the farming or processing of hemp, contact our global experts, legal, and consultation teams to make sure that you're on the right road when you venture into the new hemp industrial revolution. Michigan Hemp Industries has been a leader and advocate for the return of the hemp industry, so come be a part of the new revolution in agriculture in Michigan.
We have launched.
We have completely launched. We've started the show, and it is Planet Green Trees. We're about to embark 2 hours of medical marijuana and marijuana reform in Michigan, and nationally, and internationally, and even in Spaceland. There's an argument that we evolved from the cannabis plant. Let's just be honest, okay?
Ow, what's going on, everybody? How y'all doing?
420th episode.
If you're a connoisseur, you're going to want the good stuff. And if you want the good stuff, you're going to go for the mom and pop stuff because that's the good stuff.
It's just a real pleasure to come here and congratulate you on your 420th show, and thank you for having me on a few times over the 420.
Dr. Bud Green here. Welcome to our
Komorn Law. Michael Komorn is one of the top attorneys in Michigan that has experience and dedication in criminal defense law. Komorn Law can take your case from arrest all the way from trial, appeals, and even to the Supreme Court. The team at Komorn Law has the compassion and the experience you can look to for help in your time of need. Komorn Law has over 25 years experience in criminal defense. We have accomplished numerous legislative changes through community involvement and lobbying. Our award-winning law firm has a reputation like no other for keeping overreaching government accountable and in check. We have built Komorn Law for people who need lawyers to stand up to the system, fight back and win. Once we become your lawyer, you become a part of our family. Don't settle for less, just ask our clients. Komorn Law, the best damn criminal defense lawyers, period.